A young man was catching some Z's. Then he wakes up into the middle of a park, head pounding. The young man then vows he'll never put another drop of alcohol in his mouth again. He starts to remember the things that happened last night. Something really weird related to something called a status window. That got an update. It was a pretty complicated situation. So our protagonist starts laughing to keep from crying. Moving on, he realizes he's unemployed and needs to do something with his life. As he's pondering his life choices, a strange figure appears in front of him.
The guy gets a real fright at this moment.
She introduces herself as Mary from the Status Window Management Department. With all of this going on, our protagonist is understandably a bit dazed. He's got this totally lost look on his face. That's when it hits him. What happened? Last night wasn't just a dream. This is real. Miri continues the conversation, explaining that they finally got a chance to look at the ticket Taijun had sent them. It was about this explosive growth ability. They figured out there was indeed some kind of error, and they've fixed it. The problem was a missing update, and it had caused him a lot of stress. For safety reasons, Mary didn't want to go into too much detail about the situation, but she assures him that the explosive growth ability should now be working normally. With all that said, he's still visibly shaken. He's been through so much because of this. This problem caused him endless grief. For Taejun, it was unforgivable. The fact that he dedicated himself for 7 years to a glitch that wasn't even his fault. A problem he didn't create. Now, dealing with this situation, he demands to be compensated in some way. He deserves it. Mary tries to soothe him. She assures him that all the stats he was supposed to gain have been restored and his wounds have been completely healed. He pauses for a moment and he realizes that he actually is healed. And not just that, he notices his body is in remarkably good shape. Miri then continues, explaining that to activate explosive growth, he first needs to trigger something. So, she makes Taejun a very interesting proposition. The scene then shifts to the middle of a city, where some kind of commotion is unfolding. Apparently, a monster is the cause of this chaos. A portal has appeared in the middle of the city. Civilians are in a complete state of panic, desperately calling for help. Our hero is on the scene, questioning if Miri really wants him to take on this monster, because to him, it seems like Miri is sending him to his doom. But she's trying to reassure him, saying he's definitely got this. So she tells him to have faith and just go for it. But he's not entirely convinced, not even close. That's because this is a poisonous spore monster, the kind that could take down even B-rank hunters. Even a skilled team of suppressors could have a hard time with this creature. All that said, according to Miri, Taejun needs to defeat that creature to activate the explosive growth. The risk is pretty high. That's why he's scared stiff. The condition for unlocking it doesn't seem very appealing. But our protagonist pauses to reflect on this for a moment. Then he remembers all the messed up situations he's been through so far. Continuing with that kind of life just didn't seem worth it. So there was really no reason to hesitate. Taejun's life was already complicated enough. Things couldn't get any worse than they already were. So he makes a decision and resolves to do it. Our protagonist breaks through the guard's blockade like a true hero, even with him trying to stop him without hesitation. He charges headfirst at the monster. The creature retaliates, spewing jets of venom. One of those jets catches him on the arm. Ouch! But he grits his teeth and pushes through the pain. He manages to land a solid blow on the monster. Yes! Right then, a quest window pops up in front of him. Looks like he's leveling up. A small step forward. Quest completed. He's making progress. Fearless. The experience. Skill activates in that moment. Things are getting interesting. And finally, growth. Explosive growth is activated. Talk about a power-up. All this from a single kick? The protagonist is visibly surprised by the sheer force of it. And just then, a message flashes across his vision, telling him that his stats have been significantly increased. He's getting stronger. Now we see Taejun's status window. Check out those buffs. Miri looks incredibly proud. She's eager to know. How did it feel to use explosive growth? For the very first time, wearing a slightly crazed grin, our protagonist comments that this ability is truly overpowered, but Mary cautions him not to celebrate too much just yet. The real benefit of using this ability is only just beginning to surface, so Mary tells our hero to keep sending the power into the monsters. And so he does. As the battle rages on, he confidently charges towards the remaining poison spores. This time he's brimming with confidence. He prepares his attack, and with a single swift strike, he takes down a junior spore. The explosive growth ability is proving to be truly incredible. It's granting him an insane amount of attributes just for defeating a single monster. So he keeps smashing those spores to bits. And wouldn't you know it? Each spore he crushes seriously boosts his stats. Now brimming with power, our protagonist sets his sights on the biggest spore of them all. So he's on a roll, feeling fantastic. He figures if he keeps this up, he'll definitely reach rank B. Or who knows, maybe he'll even climb all the way to rank A. Some time has passed now. The suppression team has finally arrived at the location. They're completely bewildered, though, because the action's already over. That's when the suppression team recognizes Taejun. They're thinking, what's a loser like him doing here? Our protagonist's got this intense, almost crazed look on his face, which leads the suppression team to think he's been smoking something. Then they approach Taejun. They ask if he's lost something. The leader of the suppression group starts to provoke him, trying to stir up trouble. Finally, our hero notices the suppression group's presence there. But at that moment, something else is catching his eye, a blue window. What he sees in that window sends a jolt of excitement through him. Just then, the local guard thanks our protagonist for his help. The young guard remarks that if it weren't for a certain hunter, they would never have caught up with our hero. He seizes the opportunity to polish his image. He acts the part of a virtuous hero, saying he simply did his duty as a hunter. With that, the suppression squad is starting to feel seriously nauseous hearing all this praise. The young guards just keep heaping compliments on him, saying how incredible it was. The way he single-handedly took down all those spores. That's when the suppression squad finally cuts them off. They flat out refuse to believe he defeated those spores alone, but the young guards insist that's exactly what happened. This leaves the suppression squad looking utterly bewildered, their faces a picture of shock. They just can't wrap their heads around it. But before they can say anything, our protagonist suggests they move to a more private location to talk. And so that's what they do. They relocate to another spot, which turns out to be an abandoned, crumbling building. That group, they were really eager to hear what he had to say. They questioned, was it really him who dealt with all those spores? Alone? It didn't make any sense. How could a rank D hunter accomplish something like that? They were basically calling him a liar. The leader of the suppression team demanded an explanation. Right then, our hero remembered the message on his status window. There was a new mission, telling him to teach a lesson to this group of clueless people. And the reward for this quest? A seriously overpowered ability. For him, it was like killing two birds with one stone. Snapping back to the present, the protagonist begins to put on a show. He asks them, ever so politely, for the suppression team to let him beat them up on purpose. This request leaves them frozen in disbelief for a few moments. They're stunned by the sheer absurdity of what they just heard. But he doesn't stop there. He asks them to cooperate with him. He explains that he doesn't have any experience bullying people. And once again, he politely requests the suppression group to just let him give them a free beating. With that, obviously, the group starts to think our protagonist is crazier than Batman. Their patience wearing thin, they decide to drop the niceties and get rough. The bald guy snarls that these punks are going to pay. He grabs our hero by the head, looking menacing, but our hero doesn't back down. He calmly asks the bald guy, "Are you serious?" That's the moment the bald guy realized he'd messed up big time. Our protagonist gets to his feet like it was nothing. The Mosquito Airport, LOL, what a nickname, is completely bewildered. Right then and there, before he can even process what's happening, he gets a punch straight to the face. Bam! The force of that blow makes him collapse instantly, lights out. Meanwhile, the rest of his crew can't believe what they're seeing. Then, our protagonist taunts the rest of the suppression squad, challenging them to come at him one by one. He declares that it's their time to get bullied. Ouch! And he's going to do it with just a single finger to the forehead. This really ticks off the group. They demand to know what makes this guy so confident. But our hero remains cool and collected, and in that instant, Titan flicks one of the guys right in the forehead and continues to defeat every member of the suppression squad, using only his fingers. The blows he was landing were incredibly devastating, and all he was using were his fingers. Seriously, he was absolutely wiping the floor with this group, with unbelievable ease, I might add. This makes the group's leader think that this must be some kind of act, or a really twisted joke. Even watching the scene unfold, he just couldn't believe what he was seeing. That's when our protagonist gives a sinister smirk, and he announces that he's not going to go easy on the blonde guy, not like he did with the rest of the crew. So he tells the blonde guy to really brace himself, because he's going to make an example out of him. This infuriates the blonde guy. Right then, spikes of ice start to materialize around him. The blonde comes to the conclusion that the protagonist, so it seems the blondie unlocked some physical attribute skill recently. Someone needs to tell him not to get cocky about it, because he's about to get his comeuppance right now. The blonde kid's skill is called ice missiles, and our protagonist didn't realize he already possessed this ability. But at this precise moment, our hero himself has just unlocked a brand new skill, and it couldn't have come at a more perfectly opportune time. So the protagonist boldly announces that he too has just acquired a new ability, and a massive ball of fire begins to form above him. This spectacular skill is the ranked fireball, and the protagonist pointedly asks the blonde kid what he thinks of his latest acquisition, but the poor guy is utterly speechless in the moment. So our hero tells him to brace himself, or he might just kick the bucket. But what else could he do? The poor blonde guy just has to accept it. Then a huge explosion erupts. The blonde barely escaped death by the skin of his teeth. Even he couldn't believe he survived that. Our protagonist makes it clear there's no room for him to be scared stiff now. Taejun now demands that the blonde treat all the guild members well. No more bullying. And obviously, the poor guy agrees. He's absolutely terrified. But our hero isn't quite satisfied yet. He points out that someone still hasn't gotten what's coming to them. After that whole mess, Miri wants to recap the events that just transpired. Our protagonist unlocked a brand new status window. He's gained power. And so, finally, he was able to stand up to the people who tormented him. Up until now, it was a sweet, sweet revenge against those who bullied him in the past. With everything, maybe he went a little too far. Considering our protagonist passed out from exhaustion, it's been 3 days since he's been in this state. Our protagonist asks for Miri. Quiet down. He's in a lot of pain, remember? He explains that he pushed his mana to its absolute limit. That's why he's so beat up. He admits he acted impulsively. Now he realizes he needs to focus on increasing his mana reserves. Miri wonders if he really needs to go that far. He replies that it's because of his explosive growth, that he needs to focus on his mana. All his abilities are incredibly powerful, and his mana needs to keep up. He gives the example of the ranked fireball he used earlier. Miri understands, but she wonders where he can even go to increase his mana. He still has 8.5 hours left to recover. He says he knows the perfect place to gather more mana. The scene shifts to a massive training tower. He proudly presents the tower to Miri, saying it's the absolute best place to boost their mana. But Mary finds it incredibly strange that there's nobody around, especially since this training tower is quite famous. Even so, he doesn't have an answer either, because recently, this was a really popular spot for beginners. Just then, a strange figure approaches our protagonist. The old man calls our hero Grandpa and asks if he's back already. Our group is completely baffled. What's this decrepit old guy talking about? He then says he's here to get the quest for training at the tower. But the little old man somehow hears fast food. The protagonist tells him he didn't hear correctly, since he's talking about the training quest. Finally, the decrepit old man. He seems to understand the challenge being presented, so the old man instructs the group to follow him, equipment and all. Miri looks nervous, but our hero tries to reassure her, saying he came prepared. The old man, as he leads them, wants to offer some explanations about the tower, but our hero cuts him off, declaring that the tower has 10 stages. Once you've conquered them all, the quest will appear. He explains confidently. And the first stage? Defeating 10 goblins, naturally. Nailed it, our hero thinks. The old man confirms that he's spot on. Miri is clearly impressed by our protagonist's advanced knowledge of everything. He might have never actually set foot in a dungeon before, but his knowledge is based purely on study. From all those videos he used to binge watch. That's his secret. He's brimming with confidence, and Miri is giving him her full support. Meanwhile, the old man, who's a bit hard of hearing, asks if the group is talking to him. Are you guys addressing me? But our group just says no. Nope, not you. Finally, the group arrives at the designated spot. The old man announces that the challenge is about to begin. Let the games commence. And then he summons the monsters. He's so excited he can barely stand. He's absolutely buzzing, just itching to get the challenge started. And finally, the goblins start pouring out. They're coming in full force. But then, behind the goblins, huge creatures begin to emerge. And it looks like the group has been caught completely off guard. The situation suddenly looks very, very grim. The protagonist wonders aloud, are we sure this isn't the boss season? Then he turns to the old man asking, what's going on here? Because these goblins
look more like ogres.
But the old geezer doesn't respond at all. He just starts thinking about food. Seriously? Our protagonist is getting seriously ticked off. He's thinking this guy is just a useless, invalid, a freeloader on the family. But this is definitely not the time for a family squabble, because at that moment, the ogres charge straight at them. Mary wonders aloud, what do we do now?
The monsters are bearing down on them.
Just as the ogres are about to reach the group, he gets ready to unleash a skill. With the confidence of a god, he shouts, bring it on, all of you! I'll take you all down. He's totally fearless. His fire skill seems to have been incredibly effective. But there's no time to celebrate, because another wave of monsters is already heading their way. One of the ogres is already about to land a hit on him. Talk about close. Then a direct attack comes his way.
But he managed to defend himself. He realizes these ogres are seriously powerful.
Even so, he charges at the monster, aiming for a knockout kick. The ogre blocks it, but he doesn't give up. He winds up for another attack, landing a solid hit on the ogre, right smack in the face. And with that, the ogre is finally defeated. As a report detailing his progress appears, the old man shows up behind him. He says he's impressed by how quickly he cleared the first stage. He comments that it looked almost too easy for him, but our hero admits it was actually much harder than he expected. Then the old man instructs them to proceed to the next stage, but the old man's attitude really unnerves him. He starts to reflect on the tower. It's proving to be much tougher than he imagined. The numbers, the levels, the difficulty, everything is several times harder than he expected. This makes the challenge incredibly grueling. Now it makes sense why nobody bothers going there. Dungeon for beginners. Apparently, that's just the name. From the tower entrance, he can hear the screams of other groups. But finally, he's reached the final stage. This is the infamous final boss, Hellhound Cerberus, rank S, level 90. But he's stunned when he sees the monster's stats, because according to everything he studied, the final boss shouldn't be anything like this terrifying creature. The difference is unbelievably huge. He gets seriously discouraged by this.
He's thinking there's no way he can defeat this creature.
Plus, he's completely out of mana. Just then, a secret quest pops up. It says that the disturbance in the tower is being caused by a senile NPC, non-player character. The quest instructs him to heal this NPC, thereby restoring the troubled tower. Now it all makes sense. The tower is so difficult because the old mage can't control his mana, and that's what's causing the disturbances in the tower. So, to clear this dungeon, he needs to heal the old guy first. Miri then asks if he has any ideas. He says he's gonna try something, and so it is decided. Without wasting any more time, our protagonist sets off to do something, remembering that mages, when they can't control their mana, they can end up losing their minds. And just then, he notices a tangled mess of mana swirling around Grandpa's head. So, our protagonist quietly moves into position behind the old man. Mary's completely bewildered, not having a clue what he's doing. He gets ready to put his plan into action, and unbelievably, it turns out to be the massage of a lifetime. The old man feels so incredible. He thinks he's achieved. Be Nirvana? He actually confirms that this is, in fact, Nirvana, and our hero continues his work with, what is definitely not your average massage. Our protagonist is actually sorting out the chaotic mana, the disordered mana. He needs to get that mana flowing smoothly again. And in the old man's head, but just then, Cerberus was already gearing up for a massive attack. The powerful attack was just moments away from landing. A direct hit seemed inevitable. Our heroes looked to be in a truly desperate situation. From the outside, you could witness the sheer scale of Cerberus's attack. It was terrifying. But back inside, the old man was lamenting his aged body, having caused so many problems for the group. He was filled with remorse. The old man had changed in an unbelievable way. It was a complete transformation. Our hero looks on in utter disbelief, witnessing this incredible scene. This old man was completely unrecognizable from before. He declared that his clarity, his true mind, had finally returned. After a long time lost in the fog, with a swift swing of his staff, Cerberus was completely pulverized, reduced to nothing. But not only that, the entire upper section of the labyrinth was obliterated in the blast. The old man then offered his thanks, saying that he owed the group a great debt. They only had to ask for anything at all. The quest to help the NPC nil was complete. And then, a secret reward is announced. Ooh, mysterious. The scene cuts to someone counting down. What's going on? It's that old guy from earlier, intensely focused as he lifts weights. Finally! This beefcake has just hit his 100th rep. Talk about dedication. And the old man explains the method to his madness. Weightlifting is the secret to handling tons of mana. Who knew? So, naturally, the old geezer continues to flex his impressive muscles. Those armored muscles! He proudly proclaims that this is how he managed to achieve the esteemed rank of Archmage. A status window pops up introducing us to this gym rat Archmage. This guy is serious about his gains. A true gym rat. The old man then grandly asks everyone to witness his mana-infused muscles. He's practically radiating magical energy. He even invites our main group to touch his biceps and feel the power for themselves. They politely but firmly decline. The old man, slightly deflated, quickly changes the subject. He cuts to the chase, asking what they want from him. Our protagonist gets straight to the point. He asks them to help boost his mana capacity. The super old man immediately replies, saying that's a very simple request. He gets ready to do something about it. The grandpa then uses a mana building technique on our hero. This causes a surge in his mana, a brutal increase of 300, but it felt like he was going to die in the process. The mega old man says his problem can't just be mana. This leaves our hero thoroughly confused. So, he asks why. The old man explains that the issue is how he's using mana. He's using far too much mana for the fireball skill, which is normally a basic ability. However, it's consuming way more mana than it should. At this moment, the old man offers to help him rebuild this fireball ability. The scene shifts to a large building, where a ranked hunter is calling for him with a very cheerful expression. Miri is surprised that he knows such an eminent person. He explains that she is an old friend from the Hunter's Den, the Awakening Training Center. He said that he called her to train the new fireball technique he learned from that old man. It's just that his friend's Myth Guild there has the largest training center in the region. The old fireball was already very powerful, so he needed a place to test even stronger. Miri actually complimented him on his connections. Her friend asks what the two of them were talking about, but he replies that it's nothing, already heading to a certain place. They both realize it's been quite a while since they last saw each other. Wow, time flies. He mentions he's been busy with some hunter activities. Yeah, things have been pretty hectic lately with all the hunter stuff. His friend seems genuinely interested. Oh, really? That sounds exciting. She notices the protagonist has changed. You know, she says thoughtfully, you seem different because he used to ask her for a lot of help. You used to rely on me so much. But this time, he seems much more confident. But now, you're so much more confident. Continuing the conversation, she mentions that someone else also requested to use her training area. Oh, and by the way, someone else asked to use my training grounds. He's curious to know who it is. Really? Who could that be? But the moment the protagonist sees who it is, he's utterly surprised. Whoa! Those two spears look incredibly familiar. Those spears, they look awfully familiar. And then we are introduced to the A-rank hunter called... There's the Guildmaster, Rian, apparently an old acquaintance of our protagonist. But it seems the two aren't exactly thrilled to see each other. The young lady there, she's understandably confused by all the tension. After all, it's been over a year since these two have seen each other. Regardless, she brushes it aside and starts explaining about the training field. This place is created using the user's own mana. The monster's power is directly tied to the user's mana level. Interesting, right? Now time for our dear and to take the test. She says a cute monster appeared, but he can't quite grasp how such an aberration could possibly be cute. With that, she asks if that explanation was sufficient, so she decides to leave the area, heading off to grab some drinks. The atmosphere suddenly becomes heavy again, for some reason. And after the lady's explanation, he now wants to test monster creation using mana. And just like that, a large green ogre appears. He's impressed that it actually worked. Awesome! Now, Taejun prepares for his grand training session. He starts beating the monster mercilessly, no holds barred. After a flurry of attacks, he winds up for his final strike. The monster is instantly blown to pieces. Feeling confident, our protagonist brags that it was way too easy. But just then, Hunter Choi asks, "Was that you who did that?" Our hero asks what he's talking about, but Hunter Choi tells him not to play dumb. He's talking about the fire. The president of the guild members, Hunter Choi, couldn't believe it when he first heard the rumors, but now, seeing it with his own eyes, he knows it's true, and he questions whether our protagonist unlocked some kind of new, miraculous ability. He wonders if he's beating up his old comrades just because he's gotten stronger. But the protagonist pauses, lost in thought for a moment, and we learn that Hunter Choi was actually a close friend of his in the past. However, after Hunter Choi joined the Bishong Guild and leveled up, he changed drastically with his new friends, until he became the person he is now. Because of that, the two of them are no longer friends at all. Now back in the present, Taejun confirms that he was indeed the one who beat them up on them. He gave those scoundrels a beating they wouldn't forget, and he wanted to know if our protagonist had a problem with that. Our hero quickly defends his actions. He explains that this group had been messing with him for a long time now. He questions why the hunter, Choi, never offered to help him with this bullying problem, but the guy retorts, saying he's sick and tired of hearing garbage. And because Hunter Choi is grabbing his shirt, he says he was forced to act in self-defense. Things got tense in that moment. But then she is shocked by the scene unfolding. The two guys had gone completely ballistic. They were fighting like there was no tomorrow. He even had to dodge an attack that could have been lethal. With that, the protagonist asks for some time, but Hunter Choi refuses, because what he really wanted was ketchup. That's when our protagonist unleashes a devastating attack. It connects with Hunter Choi, hitting him dead on. The attack was truly effective, forcing Hunter Choi to acknowledge that our hero has become incredibly powerful. Because of this, Choi declares he's going to fight seriously now. But the protagonist just starts taunting him, calling him a punk, saying he should have done this from the start. This makes Hunter Choi question himself. When did he lose his humility and become so arrogant? The battle continues. Hunter Choi prepares a special skill, the first form of the Thunder Spear technique. Our dear name, she, was watching the scene unfold. She was incredibly anxious about the situation, but he was already expecting it. More prepared than Batman himself. He already had a counterattack ready. Meanwhile, the beautiful huntress over there was watching the scene in utter disbelief, because he began to perform a Kamehameha, an adapted version of his fireball. The one the protagonist learned from that super old archmage. The muscular one. It was like an energy cannon about to hit Hunter Choi, who recognized that there was no way to defend against an attack like that. But at the very last moment, it was possible to see a silhouette step in front of him. At that moment, someone drew a sword and sliced that massive blue fireball in half. Everyone present was stunned into silence by the sight. The adapted fireball attack, he'd actually been disarmed. Seriously? And the person responsible? Apparently it was a swordsman. Figures, but he's completely taken aback when he learns who that swordsman was. It's the vice president, an S-rank hunter from the Mythy Guild. Whoa. And he's giving our protagonist a serious dressing down. He scolds him, saying that kind of ability isn't something you just use on a colleague. But our hero tries to defend himself. He explains that it was only the first time he'd ever used the ability. Oops. And just then, Hunter Choi is internally celebrating that the situation didn't escalate. It seemed like the vice leader was about to tear him a new one. But actually, he receives an invitation to join the guild. What? Completely jaw-dropping, Hunter Choi can't believe what he's hearing. Watching the scene unfold, he knows that this is one of the fewest ranks in the entire country. This is huge. He was making our protagonist an offer he couldn't refuse. It was a proposition too good to pass up. And not only that, but the guild leader even praised him. He complimented someone who'd pushed a basic skill to its absolute limit. He said it would be incredible to have someone so extraordinary in his guild. This takes him by surprise. Meanwhile, the huntress there is delighted by the scene. The Mythy Guild is one of the 4 largest in the country, along with the Geek, Logwa, and Shayon-Gyeon guilds. Joining a guild like that would truly benefit him enormously. He mentions having heard that hunters should train to their limits, promising to duel with the enemy that day to test his limits. Logically, this was a lie. This takes Hunter Choi completely by surprise. He's floored. Our protagonist continues to spin his tale about the duel with Hunter Choi. He describes Choi as a massive mountain, an insurmountable obstacle that he can't overcome just yet. And that's why he says he can't accept the vice leader's offer just yet. He still has a long way to go, he claims. Even then, Hunter Choi tries to cut through the protagonist's web of lies. But the vice leader is completely buying the protagonist's story, hook, line, and sinker. He says he admires his fighting spirit. Emo mutters that the vice leader has strange tastes. Then, the vice leader asks our hero for his name. He introduces himself as a D-rank hunter. The vice leader says that a talent like him being stuck in D-rank is a genuine tragedy, a waste. So, the vice leader decides to step in and lend a hand. He offers him a letter of recommendation. Armed with that letter, our hero had the golden ticket to participate in the examination, the all-important admission exam, specifically for rank B, and yet he found himself still wrestling with the decision of whether to actually go through with it. Despite everything, he couldn't help but recall all the sweet perks that came with climbing the ranks, each rank higher. And obviously, this wasn't a bad deal by any stretch of the imagination. Not at all. Fast forward a month, and he stands at the designated testing grounds. He's practically buzzing with excitement, knowing this incredible opportunity is finally here. Mary, clearly impressed, comments on the recommendation itself. He replies with a confident smirk. Talent recognizes talent, wouldn't you say? But Mary has a question. She wonders why he didn't jump at the chance to join the guild. His answer is blunt and honest. Money, plain and simple. Because hunters have to split a portion of their earnings with the guild, he explains. And on top of that, there's barely any free time in your schedule. Going even further, they treat you like dogs, offering zero support when you get injured. So, joining the guild makes absolutely no sense. Money comes first, he firmly believes. Just then, someone calls out to him. It was a C-rank hunter named Yu. He's genuinely surprised to discover he's becoming famous. The girl explains that she learned about him from the Mythy Guild's vice leader. He inwardly groans, thinking, that vice leader talks too much. At that moment, another person appears behind him, trying to provoke him. This guy was a C-rank hunter named Kang. He introduces himself, declaring that he's destined to be the greatest hunter of his era. For a split second, he thinks he's completely lost his mind. But then, an attendant steps forward to thank all the participants for waiting. Until now, she officially announces the commencement of test number 32. The woman then announces that she will introduce the hunter who will be in charge of the test. Incredibly, the hunter in question is none other than Choi. Our hero definitely wasn't expecting that. Hunter Choi strides confidently onto the stage and begins to speak, explaining that the test will take place inside a dungeon. They'll be working in groups of 2, and there are 4 entrances, A, B, C, and D. In the center, there will be a boss monster to defeat. Hunter Choi assures them not to worry too much about safety, because there are checkpoints. Continuing on. There will also be a streaming point system in place, so everyone should definitely keep that in mind. With that, Hunter Choi announces the start of the trials and begins calling out the groups by name. Since they were in pairs, first he called Team A, and now it's Team B's turn. Team C is now being called, and finally, Team D. That chubby guy from the protagonist's team is clearly really excited to be partnered with him. So, The two of them decide to head straight into the portal. They're just about to step through to the other side. Meanwhile, the Itachi Castor is seriously ticked off. He's annoyed about having to oversee their test. Because of this, things might not end well. The two of them finally enter the area for the grand test, and Hunter Choi vows to make him regret it. However, let's rewind a bit. Back at the test facility, the chubby guy from our heroes group is having a conversation, a pretty suspicious one, with Hunter Choi. Choi is trying to get the chubby guy to infiltrate the heroes group, to sabotage them, making sure they fail the test. And on top of that, the chubby guy could make some money from this, which he desperately needs because of his mother's surgery. So Hunter Choi promises to help the chubby guy if he cooperates. Back to the test site. Our group runs into some monsters, but the protagonist wipes the floor with them. Incredible. He complains about the monsters being too weak and the low experience points he's getting. But in that very moment, the chubby guy is utterly shocked by our hero's monstrous strength. He's thinking back to just a few weeks ago, when the two of them were practically on the same level. Our protagonist had even praised him, cheering on the chubby guy's achievements. He was completely supportive, always saying that everything would be all right. Especially with such a powerful absorption ability, just like his own. The chubby guy remembers how good the protagonist was to him, always so kind and encouraging, which makes him feel incredibly guilty about having to sabotage his test. But the chubby guy doesn't have a choice. His mother is in the hospital and desperately needs money, so he makes a difficult decision. He steals his resolve, muttering, "I have to do this for my family." And then, the chubby guy calls out to him, offering him a bottle. For him, the chubby guy explains that it's a buff potion that he always brings on his expeditions. Our hero thanks him for it, and without hesitation, he gulps it all down. Turns out it was a paralysis potion, and he was supposed to become immobilized for a while. Suddenly he felt something. It was an unbelievable stomachache, like the devil himself was waking up inside him. And to top it all off, there weren't any bathrooms around. He realizes there's no other choice
but to finish this dungeon and fast.
The chubby guy is left utterly confused, wondering if the potion even worked. Our hero continues to suffer with his gut-wrenching pain, possibly caused by a skill that grants poison resistance. Sometime later, he was doing much better. The chubby guy was in disbelief upon learning he had poison resistance. Seriously, poison resistance? He probably thought. They'd reached the end of a dead-end path. There was no way forward. They'd have to turn back. He starts complaining about the dungeon's layout. Oh, this dungeon design is awful. Right then, the chubby guy sees an opportunity. He thinks he could push him off the cliff. This might be his last chance to sabotage his test. He mutters an apology, and then the chubby guy shoves him. But our hero dodges at the last second, causing the whale, a funny nickname maybe, to tumble over the edge of the cliff all by himself. They both stare, shocked at what just happened. Whoa, did that really just happen? The chubby guy starts to fall, but the protagonist manages to grab him. He catches him by the leg. He asks the chubby guy why he wants to end it all. The chubby guy replies that he's a piece of trash. He deserves to die like this, with everything happening. Our hero doesn't understand why he's saying that. Then the chubby guy confesses that he was trying to sabotage the protagonist's test. That's why he deserves to be left to die. And at that moment, the stomach cramps come back with a vengeance. He's about to explode with diarrhea. He thinks about finding a place to relieve himself, especially since nobody was watching his stream anyway. But, incredibly, there were 10 people watching them right at that moment. People, they were genuinely captivated by what was unfolding. Now he was in an incredibly tight spot, right at his limit. He ends up tumbling into the hole along with the hefty guy. There was nothing to be done. The two of them were in free fall. Finally, they reached the bottom of the ravine, where numerous red eyes could be seen. It was a whole pack of snakes, monster snakes. The two of them become incredibly nervous. Meanwhile, back on the stream, it was clear that Team B was also in trouble. That team was completely exhausted, leading viewers to wonder if they'll make it out of there alive. With that, you can't handle the pressure and you quit the test? Meanwhile, the viewers are watching the scene unfold. And since the girl abandoned the test, the guy in her group failed as well. Meanwhile, in another group, the problem is they were fighting amongst themselves. According to the viewers, they were getting distracted ever since they entered the dungeon. Now, the only team remaining is Team A. That's the team with the cat-eared girl. Apparently, she's pretty popular among the stream's viewers. The group is battling white snakes. The girl is getting ready to jump into action, but her partner is already going all out. The guy is trying to impress his boss with his performance. For him, this is a golden opportunity. The viewers are making... She scoffs at his random movements. "Show off," she mutters under her breath. Meanwhile, the girl is clearly annoyed that the guy is stealing the spotlight. She decides she's going to do something about it. She unleashes her ability, Frostwind, while shouting, "I refuse to be a side character." She's determined to make her mark. It was pretty obvious that these two would pass the test. They're a force to be reckoned with. And finally, Team A has made it to the final boss first. The spectators are going wild. They're definitely going to ace this test, right? The two are greeted by the examiners, the ones in charge of the tests, who tell them that they will take them to the final boss room. But the girl wonders why the hunter hasn't arrived yet. Hunter Choi explains that he lost the signal from his group, and they're probably out of the running. His partner, he mentions that he warned her he wasn't a big deal, but the girl was still excited to see him in action. So, without wasting any more time, the instructor asks him to accompany them inside the dungeon. Choi is secretly delighted. He's pleased to think that he was eliminated by the chubby guy, and that the vice president will be truly disappointed with this information. But then something happens. Right at that moment, the three of them come across a terrifying scene. Everyone there is utterly bewildered. Apparently, something is very, very wrong. All the monsters are dead, and a sinister creature is sitting on a throne. The chubby guy's absorption ability, basically, he captures an ability and then returns it, and the power of the return scales with what he's absorbing. But when this ability, he absorbed the Archmage's fireball. Seriously, he just ate it! And just like that, a new ability is born. Tadium and the hefty guy are calling it Hell Train.
How cool is that?
Meanwhile, the spectators are absolutely loving this insane spectacle. They're going wild. Tadium turns to his partner and asks, "Can you absorb any more of that ability?" Is he serious? The big guy confirms with a grin, "Yeah, I can." So they're off to face the final boss? They're not messing around. At the same time, the viewers are losing their minds over the team's incredible performance. The hype is real. This team is on fire. Now the scene cuts to where the hunter, Choi, is. The situation is strange. The boss and Mood are dead. That much is clear. But Light is standing in their place. What's going on here? This makes Choi suspect that someone has tampered with the dungeon. That's definitely not good. And if that turns out to be the case, this could be big. So they're facing a serious problem. The group then asks Hunter Choi, "What are we going to do now?" Because the boss has now become a light, and this light is controlling the other boss, the one that was supposed to be here. Hunter Choi tells the group to step back because the situation has become incredibly dangerous. At that moment, the light commands the giant serpent to attack the group. Hunter Choi goes on high alert. He manages to dodge the serpent's attack. Meanwhile, the group, who had been just watching, decides to jump into the fray and help. The girl uses Ice Arrow, while the guy uses Rising Dragon Fist. Just then, the light prepares to do something. The light creates a barrier around the snake, one that reflects attacks. Caught completely off guard, Hunter Choi, ever the team player, checks to see if his comrades are all right. Then, with a grim resolve, he decides he needs to deal with the golem first. The one controlling the snake. It's the key to taking down this beast. Without hesitation, Hunter Choi charges towards the monster. But something feels off. A prickling sense of unease. Suddenly, Choi is caught completely off guard. He instantly regrets his impetuousness, rushing in like that was a mistake. The serpent coils, preparing a devastating attack. A chilling thought races through Hunter Choi's mind. This might be it. This is how it ends. Facing his imminent demise, his thoughts drift to the girl he has a crush on. I never even told her. But then, out of nowhere, the chubby guy and Hunter Taejon burst onto the scene. Choi is stunned into silence, his near-death experience momentarily forgotten. The chubby guy, oblivious to the tension, cheers, exclaiming how they finally made it. Hunter Choi is just relieved to be alive. He's also utterly bewildered by what's happening. What a mess. Without a second to lose, he urgently warns the group to get away from the boss. He roars the warning immediately, because the snake was already within striking distance, and the group hadn't even realized it yet. But just at the last possible moment, our group manages to dodge the snake's attack. Poor things. Then he asks why there's a light and a boss moj. In a Class B assessment exam, the hunter, Troy, explains that someone must have sabotaged the exam. It was probably another guild, trying to undermine a rival. And the hunter, Taejun, says he more or less understands what's going on. So he asks if all that they have to do is defeat those two bosses. Charlie replies, yes, but she's clearly not happy about it. In having to work alongside Taejun, with everything going on, there wasn't much choice. And so the two formed a temporary alliance. Meanwhile, Hunter Choi charges forward. Taejun starts conjuring his modified fireball, and as he does, he asks the chubby guy if he can still absorb more abilities. With everything happening, the chubby guy replies that he can't. He's reached his limit. The battle has officially broken out, and the serpent begins unleashing its attacks. The attacks are being held back by Hunter Choi. Meanwhile, our protagonist has already prepared his attack. So he unleashes his fireball, disguised as a Kamehameha. Hitting the serpent head-on, Choi seizes the opportunity to unleash his technique. Divine Spear, second form. The serpent is struck head-on by the devastating attack. The hunter, Choi, has successfully managed to land a flurry of slicing attacks. And it looks like this might be the end for the boss emoji, leaving only the light monster to be defeated. The other group wastes no time and charges into the fray, while the girl hangs back at a distance. The guy rushes into close quarters combat, declaring that a true warrior never wastes an opportunity. Fearlessly, the guy pierces right through light with his fist. Meanwhile, Group A has been preparing a combo. It looks like they're about to unleash a devastating ability. The chubby guy fires off his ability, Hellish Tremor. The lit, previously frozen solid, is cleaved in two with a sickening crack. And Choi can't help but wonder if they've actually managed to defeat the creature, but everyone present is quickly struck by a sense of dread, because the attacks seem to have absolutely no effect. The lit is preparing something, a counterattack brewing in its core. Then a truly sinister attack is unleashed. Our group scrambles to defend themselves, throwing up shields and barriers, but everyone is hit, the attack indiscriminate in its fury. Our protagonist grumbles, realizing that a lit can't possibly be completely immune to abilities, can it? Surely, there's some crucial piece of information they're missing. Just then, Miri, the blue screen manager, appears. She's still complaining, grumbling about how long it took to download the application. Seriously? Then she prepares to join the fight finally. He hears something about hacking the map. Apparently, Miri had prepared some kind of navigation launch. Tae-jun doesn't understand a thing. Meanwhile, a window pops up saying, gathering dungeon information, 20%. Analyzing dungeon structure, 40%. Collecting information about surrounding monsters, 60%. Reconstructing dungeon map based on information. All of this seemed like part of the skill Miri offered, this so-called navigation skill. It was now partially active, but Tae-jun still looked incredibly confused. With this navigation skill then, and Miri explains that with this ability, he can gather information about the dungeon, enemies, and abilities. And not only that, Miri also installs other applications that he can use in combat. It's like she's loading him up with a secret arsenal. Tae-jun gets super excited about this. He says it's way beyond just cheating. It's almost ridiculous how powerful he's becoming. So he activates the information. Time to gather some intel. He's analyzing the original boss from the Dungeon and Moody game, trying to figure out the origin of this Light boss he's facing. Just then, Light starts cackling maniacally. You can even hear him saying something. Iratus-chan is very happy. Light seems delighted. Thanks to the app's translator, Tae-jun can actually understand him, but Tae-jun thinks the whole situation is just plain bizarre. This is getting weird. He asks Mary what's going on, what she's seeing, but she seems just as confused as he is. So she raises a possibility. Maybe the translator is malfunctioning? It's the only thing that makes sense. But our protagonist has a feeling that the translation is spot on. He thinks, nope, that's exactly what he's saying, because they could hear the word contractor. That means this monster is someone summoned. Tae-jun then asks Hunter Choi if he can still stand. Choi says he can. So our protagonist announces he's found the monster's weakness. Choi is understandably curious. He asks, how? But Tae-jun, ever the pragmatist, says there's no time to explain. He simply tells Choi to cooperate. And unsurprisingly, Hunter Choi isn't thrilled about being left in the dark, but he agrees to go along with it. He asks, what do we do first? Tae-jun says they need to provoke the creature, get it riled up, and so it begins. Our hero attempts to grab the monster's attention. He does it in a way that's, well, let's just say bizarre and unsettling. The monster, clearly annoyed, retorts that Tae-jun must be in a hurry to die. Then, the creature announces its intention to annihilate everyone. At that moment, everyone goes on high alert. Tae-jun bravely tells everyone to stay behind him. Light then unleashes a massive attack. And, incredibly, the group manages to survive. This is thanks to our hero's special ability. He can actually predict the monster's attack patterns. With this, Tae-jun believes he can continue with his plan. He starts taunting Light, saying he can't hit anything. Despite all this, Hunter Choi is visibly worried. Light launches another barrage of fiery attacks. Tae-jun, knowing exactly where the attacks will land, informs everyone where they need to position themselves. Light's attack slams into the ground. Tae-jun has a moment of concern,
But it works! They all managed to dodge it!
making Light incredibly impressed that they managed to avoid the blast. He challenges them to dodge his group of attacks. He goes on full alert. This is an area of effect attack, and it looks virtually impossible to dodge. His pattern reading app is confirming the danger. This is serious? Poor guy. He frantically tries to figure out the only way to avoid an attack that covers such a wide area. Just then, the leader unleashes his special ability called Death Realm. He scoffs, calling everyone around him complete idiots. But in that very moment, our team bursts out of the smokescreen. They're heading straight for Light. Tae-jun points out that Light's ability is on cooldown. He can't use it right now.
Light?
Is utterly baffled. How did the team survive that massive attack? Meanwhile, everyone present charges towards Light, ready to take him down. And now, We're about to get an explanation of this special ability. It's the Realm of Death. It has an enormous area of effect. However, the damage decreases the closer you get, the nearer you are, making the total power only 10% at the closest point. Tiden, who knew this information, managed to minimize the damage he received as much as possible. The Ice skill user wastes no time. She uses the Frost Wine skill on the Light. The monster praises our group's efforts, but warns that it can't be affected. But Tiden tells everyone to keep suppressing its movements. Thus, he moves behind the Light in a new direction. The monster is confused and wonders where our protagonist is going. Finally, the Light realizes Tiden's plan. The boss should disappear if the contract host is defeated, and until the host is defeated, the Light will remain immortal. Tidium has finally arrived at what appears to be Lyta's main body. If he breaks the summoning seal, it will surely be cancelled. Realizing this, the Lyta claims to be the error to deceive and kill Iratus Chan, and without wasting any time, the Light boss goes after our protagonist, who keeps running. The boss catches up and prepares to attack. Taejun was on the verge of being hit by the attack, but his team jumps in to stop the Light boss. Hunter Choi shouts that he can't let him get away with this. He lands a blow on the boss's back, even if he's immortal. The monster can still be slowed down! So, the group tells Taejun to keep moving forward. He thanks Hunter Choi. The Light boss
Seems desperate to stop our hero.
who, without hesitation, attacks the wall. That punch completely destroyed the wall. And the Light boss looked incredibly worried about what was about to happen. There it was, Taejun's target. Without wasting a second, he charges towards the chest. Hunter Choiper continues to restrain Light's movements, keeping him pinned. Meanwhile, he's reflecting on the weaknesses of the creature that Taejun had mentioned. He was surprised by the hidden stash he found there. At the same time, Light frantically struggles to break free. He cries out that this absolutely can't happen. Light makes one last desperate attempt. The creature was truly desperate. He shouts that nobody else should know about this except him and the contractor. Light then realizes that this human is different from the others. Taejun then threatens to destroy the chest if Light gets any closer. The partial translation was still active. So Light, he wonders aloud how our hero understands the ancient language. Taejun chimes in, saying that if he cooperates, he might just get to stay alive. Lit and Ratus watch on. Chen states that they can only obey their contractor's orders. Our hero, ever the strategist, asks what would happen if the contract were to be broken. Lit scoffs, saying it wouldn't be possible for someone as ordinary as him. Our hero raises an eyebrow. Do I look like a normal person to you, Lit? He challenges. The question hangs in the air. He starts to reflect on the strange circumstances, thinking about how he managed to find their secret hideout, and how he knew the ins and outs of their abilities. Then Lit begins to seriously consider the possibility that this human might actually be able to break the contract. With this, Lit says that for the moment. So the elite decides to trust Taejun and Radis Chan's words. He offers to do anything Taejun wants. Anything at all. The elite trying to put on a cute face? It really turned our protagonist's stomach. Yikes. First things first, Taejun wants to free all the skeletons lurking around. All those summons? It's clear someone has been working hard here, because the navigator is detecting an unusual number of monsters. So the group doesn't waste any time. They start taking down all those skeletons, one by one. Then Taejun threatens the elite, warning him that he can't lie. He asks again what our protagonist wants from him. Taejun, with a slightly psycho look on his face, tells the elite to give him everything he owns. The monster, understandably, is completely baffled by this request. And Taejun explains he's looking for things like accessories. You know, that kind of stuff. Light says he doesn't have anything like that. But then something catches Taejun's eye. But Light, says absolutely not, he can't part with it. He's talking about his magical staff. Of course, our hero starts threatening him. Faced with that, Light caves and hands over his magical staff. He asks if our protagonist will release him from their contract. But Taejun informs him that he has absolutely no idea how to do that. Oops. This takes Light completely by surprise. He clearly had high expectations. Taejun explains that there's no way he could know how. He doesn't understand invocation magic at all. This makes Light furious, and Austin just grabs the thing. But as Light starts to come at him, Taejun remembers he's still threatening to destroy the chest. And so he does. The chest is completely and utterly destroyed. The elite enemy starts to dissolve. He's lamenting his end in such a manner. But our hero just stands there watching with that look on his face. And the group thinks that elite enemy had some style. well. The way he went out, it was something else. Inside the chest, there was a finger, possibly offered by the contractor. It seems to be quite an important invocation item. Taiden completely ignores the invocation's purpose. He's way too excited about his new acquisition. Just then, something catches Miri's eye. There's another item on the ground. Taidun figures it might be valuable, especially if it came from the skeleton. At that moment, the group is already back. Taidun tells everyone that he's okay. And Choi, the hunter, Choi asks if he really defeated the elite enemy. He confirms that he did. There wasn't even a trace of that monster left. Everyone there is completely blown away by Taejun's accomplishments. It's then that the hunter, Choi, decides to have a word with him. It seems all he wanted to do was apologize for all the situations he orchestrated against Taejun. Choi can't understand how things ended up this way. Maybe it was because of the hard work that went unrewarded due to Taejun's lack of talent back in those days. And Taejun tells him that he needs to apologize the right way, but that he never expected much from him, since Choi was never quite right in the head anyway. Taejun tells them to forget about it and celebrate the moment, so they make plans to grab something to eat. After this, continuing the conversation, Choi wants to bring something up and asks if our protagonist likes and has feelings for Miss Ali. Taejun's face is a mask of pure surprise. While Tae is busy teasing his colleague, the larger guy gets both their attention. The portal has finally opened.
The group can finally escape this place.
Although our protagonist urges everyone to go. And now, with everything resolved, everyone manages to return safe and sound. But the moment they step through the portal, there are other hunters waiting. They're congratulating them on achieving rank B. There are some familiar faces in the crowd, like Leon from the Clear Sky Guild. Taejun wonders what brought all these top-tier hunters here, representatives from various well-known guilds. Miss Sil steps forward to speak. She reveals that someone interfered with the tests, explaining how the boss in Moody was transformed into the light version and other unexpected incidents that shouldn't have happened. So, they've concluded that this whole incident was caused by someone who wanted to sabotage the Clear Sky Guild, or the Ruang Guild. Miss Sil drops a bombshell. The culprit, she suspects, is Taejun, our dear protagonist. This revelation completely blindsides him. He genuinely didn't see that coming. Taejun's group is equally confused and immediately jumps to his defense. But Miss Sil argues that, based on their observations, Taejun handled everything a little too perfectly on his own. That's what makes the whole situation incredibly suspicious. For example, how did Taejun know exactly how everyone needed to move to avoid traps? Or how did he just happen to stumble upon a secret location? What's more, no one else could see what was inside that secret place. It didn't make sense for a rank D hunter to have access to such crucial information. The group starts to consider the implications, a worried silence falling over them. Miss Sil presses the issue, turning up the heat on Taejun. They're grilling him, asking if he knew beforehand that the light monster was going to appear. Our protagonist had no clue, but how could he even begin to explain? The other hunters start piling on the pressure, too. They're really coming at him hard. If he doesn't give them a good answer, he's in serious trouble right here, right now. Taejun is shocked. He realizes that they really have murderous intentions. They're not kidding around. The pressure is intense. Taejun starts racking his brain for a way to explain the situation. The image of light and his sacrifice flashes in his mind. And then there's the contractor to think about, too. So Taejun pleads with everyone to listen to him. He starts by saying that his lifelong dream has always been to become a necromancer. The others are completely lost, wondering what he's even talking about. Taejun keeps going, saying he's always done his research. Back when he was just a kid, he was the type to pore over every detail, researching those creatures, their attack patterns, even sniffing out any possible weaknesses they might have. And that's how he actually managed to figure out the potential Achilles heel of a lycanthrope.
Mrs. Sil isn't entirely buying this story, though.
So Taejun decides he needs to show them something concrete to prove his point. The reveal leaves everyone utterly speechless. It's the finger they found in the sarcophagus, a grim clue that suggests it belonged to a contractor, meaning the lycanthrope wasn't the dungeon's original monster. This changes everything. All the evidence points to someone summoning that creature specifically to sabotage the exam. A calculated attack. And that's not all. Something else doesn't add up. Why would the lycanthrope disobey its contractor, going so far as to attack them? It's unheard of. Ms. Sel's expression shifts. She seems to be taking his story a lot more seriously now. You can practically see the gears turning in her head. Then the other guy chimes in. He raises the question, who could be responsible for this? Could it be someone from the Dark Magic Guild? But Taejun counters that the culprit is almost certainly among them, right here, right now. So he tells everyone to check the hands of everyone present, and so it begins. Everyone's hands are scrutinized, and that's when someone starts getting seriously nervous. This person makes a dash for it, trying to escape. Miri is shocked. She can't believe there really was a culprit among them. Taejun casually mentions that he learned these detective skills from reading manga. This leaves Miri speechless. Meanwhile, the powerful hunters get ready to stop the suspect's escape. In In a flash, the suspect is stopped dead in their tracks, and without wasting a single second, the red afro-haired hunter charges in. He unleashes a powerful divine art skill, Dragon Strike, but then he notices something strange. Right at that moment, the suspect seems to have taken his own life. Just like that, Afro Red urgently instructs everyone to take the body back to headquarters. They need to figure out where he came from, who he was. Miss Sill is deeply concerned, realizing that someone was clearly trying to sabotage her guild. She vows to uncover the mastermind behind this plot. With that, Miss Sill apologizes to Taijun, feeling responsible for what happened. But just then, our protagonist collapses. Mary frantically tries to revive him, urging him to stay strong. His mana had completely depleted. As time stretches on, he wonders where he is. What's happening? Finally, Taijun manages to regain consciousness. He's surprised. He asks what she's doing there. She explains that she was worried. She'd heard he had collapsed. The young lady heard from the doctor that Taijun had pushed himself beyond his limits. Furthermore, he made a huge impact during that Rank B exam. Because of it, Titan has gone viral online. He read the viewers' comments praising him.
The hunter! Charlie gets upset
because he helped but received no credit. But he was told that the recordings show Taidun doing everything himself, so they start arguing. That situation felt nostalgic to Taidun. At that moment, Safun appears in the room. It was Miss Sill. The group is embarrassed by her sudden appearance, but she then explains that she actually owns the hospital. Apparently, when Taejun collapsed, he was taken to the guild's own hospital. Miss Sill feels indebted to Taejun. It turns out he saved her precious member, the hunter Yu. Apparently, that particular hunter is incredibly valuable to Miss Sill. So she asks Taejun if he wants any favor from her. Miss Sill says she'll do anything within her power, but Taejun says he doesn't have anything in mind just yet. With all this said, Miss Sill tells him he doesn't need to think of something right away. She'll be waiting for him in her penthouse office. Once again, she insists that Taejun come visit her whenever he wishes. Right then, our dear Ollie embraces him tightly, exclaiming how impressed she is. She's incredibly proud of how far Taejun has come. Meanwhile, Hunter Charlie is clearly green with envy. She wonders what Taejun will wish for, but he says he doesn't have anything in mind just yet. However, since Miss Seal is such a powerful sorceress, he'll probably ask for something related to a magical item. Our hero ponders this for a moment. Lee then states that the priority right now is to recover, so she offers Tai something to help him rest. Hunter Choi and our heroine Lee then say their goodbyes. Mary comments that our protagonist has a lot to think about at the moment, referring to all the beautiful girls wanting to help him. Tai Do is still racking his brain, trying to figure out the perfect wish. Money flashes through his mind. That could definitely solve some problems. But then he quickly realizes that making a wish for cold, hard cash might not be the smartest move, especially considering that he's talking to an S-rank hunter, someone who probably has more money than she knows what to do with. So he shifts his focus, trying to pinpoint his most pressing need in this moment. What does he really need? That's when Taidu decides to ask about his loot. Where are the items? He's referring to the spoils he'd collected earlier, Miri replies, explaining that the items have been temporarily stored at the Pursley Market. Taidu raises an eyebrow, a puzzled expression on his face. The Pursley Market? What is this Pursley Market? He wonders. Miri's reaction is pretty... I'm completely stumped by this question, she admits. She goes on to explain that the Pursley Market is a massive trading platform. It boasts over 100,000 users. These users can come from all sorts of different dimensions, which is wild to think about. The sheer variety of items available is mind-blowing, and the prices are surprisingly fair. Plus, new users apparently get special perks. Taijin's curiosity is piqued. He's dying to know. Other people, from other dimensions, are actually using this thing? That's seriously impressive, considering he seems to be the only one on Earth doing it. Imagine being able to buy items from other dimensions and resell them here on Earth. I mean, that's a serious monopoly in the making. The idea of making serious money gets Taejun incredibly excited. So, without wasting any time, he decides to log in. Finally, he connects to the Pursley Market. The system begins to access the body's data and run a check of the player. A message then pops up. Welcome to the Pursley Market. The scene cuts to the inside of the Pursley Market, where there were some figures selling shields and all sorts of items. Taejun thinks it's like a generic market from some random RPG, just your average marketplace. So he decides to test it out by approaching a vendor and asking him to go ahead and appraise the shield. A status window appears analyzing the shield, but Taejun is unsure about the local currency. Miri explains that 18,000 Presley coins are equivalent to 240,000 magic stones. The price apparently was outrageous. It was equivalent to several luxury cars. Our hero asks if there's anything more affordable, but Miri tells him that's the standard price. Ouch, Taejun quickly realizes. There's nothing he can't afford right now. At least, with what he currently has on hand. Then, he remembers the item he salvaged from the trash. He wonders how much that might be worth. So, our resourceful hero brings it up with the shopkeeper, trying to casually fish for information. He asks the seller about the potential value of this magical staff. The shopkeeper decides to take a closer look at the staff, examining it carefully. But then, he delivers some bad news. The item, unfortunately, is unusable. It's been cursed, and our hero is visibly disappointed by this news. So, he moves on and asks about the other item he salvaged from the junk heap. The vendor crushes his hopes, saying it's only worth 10 pearl coins. That harsh dose of reality completely deflates Taijun's dreams of striking it rich. Just then, someone calls out to our group, star-shaped. Demon Lord wants to take a look at the crystal. Taijun warns him it might just be garbage. Even so, Demon Lord is curious and wants to inspect it. He examines the crystal closely and says it could be useful if it's enhanced. Demon Lord offers to enhance it with everything he's got, but there's a condition. If the enhancement fails, our protagonist will have to cover all the costs of the enhancement. Our group is taken aback by the condition, but Demon Lord adds that if it succeeds, he himself will cover the costs. That sounds fishy, doesn't it? Miri sends him a warning, pointing out that this could be a scam. And honestly, she has a point. It makes total sense that someone would try to take advantage of him. Trying to swindle newbies is a classic move for scammers. Taijun figures only a complete fool would fall for something like this. It seems pretty obvious, right? But then something makes him pause and think. He asks if he can stop the enhancement process whenever he wants. The Demon Lord confirms that he can. So Taijun decides to go for it anyway. What's he up to? Miri is understandably worried. She's clearly concerned that Taijun is walking into a trap, but he reassures her. He claims to have a foolproof plan, a winning strategy. Intriguing. This just leaves Miri even more confused. Taijun just smiles mysteriously and tells her to watch and see. He's definitely got something up his sleeve. Okay, here's a close-up. We see the explosive growth ability. It greatly increases the enchantment success rate. This could be key to his plan. The rules are pretty straightforward. As long as the enchantments are successful, the devil foots the bill. But the moment an enchantment fails, then Taijun is responsible for the costs. Ouch. And get this. The more successful enchantments there are, almost the higher the chance of failure becomes. Talk about a risky game. The devil then presents 100 Persian lamps and the necessary materials. Quite the setup. Then he asks if he knows how to get the job done. Taijun confidently confirms that he does. He's already gearing up to start. This is going to be interesting. An obsidian crystal begins to emit an otherworldly light. Spooky and cool. And the enhancement is a success. The obsidian crystal has been enhanced to +1. Nice. The devil, visibly impressed by Taijun's success, says as much. Obviously, he's trying to influence our protagonist to continue enhancing. Little does he know, Taijun has a trick up his sleeve. Ooh, exciting. Saying that his intention was to enhance it all the way to +9. This intrigues the devil, and he asks if he's sure. Then Taijun retorts, asking if the devil's getting scared. The devil, on the other hand, thinks he's an idiot because the odds of successfully enhancing to that level are 0.001%. The devil then tells him to go ahead. And so it is done, Taijun confirms, clicking the enhance button with gusto, doing it multiple times, almost like a madman. Miri, who's watching all this, is in shock. The devil didn't believe he'd actually go through with it, but incredibly, Taijun pulled it off. The obsidian crystal has been enhanced to +9, completely shutting up the devil who was cackling just moments before. The devil was now staring in utter disbelief. He just couldn't believe it, that he actually managed to achieve 9 enhancements without failing even once. The devil is now seriously intrigued. He's even wondering if this guy might actually be the game administrator himself. But the devil isn't giving up just yet. He hatches a plan to convince Taijun to go for just one more enhancement. He showers him with praise, congratulating him on his incredible luck. He points out that just one more enhancement and he'll reach the maximum level. Since he's already come this far, he's just one step away from ultimate power. Taijun pauses, thinking it over for a moment. After all, thanks to his explosive growth, he had an amazing, it's 100% success rate up to enhancement level 9. But the next enhancement, his a success rate of only 10%. Yeah, you talk about pressure. But with all this, Taijun is really curious to know what level of power he could reach by enhancing to the maximum level. It's a tempting gamble. So, Taijun agrees, but with one condition, he wants to go to the perfect spot, a legendary enhancement location called Parian Peak. It's like Mecca for upgraders. At that location, there were people pleading to succeed in their enhancement attempts. The atmosphere is thick with hope and desperation. Taijun can feel all the suffering and laments of these items. It's an eerie sensation. Mary asks if doing the enhancement there increases the odds. Does the location really make a difference? Taijun flatly refuses. No way, he says. Now Mary's curious. She wants to know why they're even there. So why are we here? She asks. Our hero explains his reasoning. We came here because luck has a flow to it. He elaborates. No matter how low the odds might be, eventually you're bound to succeed. The trick, he says with a knowing glint in his eye, is knowing when that eventually is going to happen. If you can master that timing, you can beat the odds, even when they're stacked against you. Mary nods. That sounds convincing. But I still don't quite understand why we had to come to this specific place. Tayden chimes in with an explanation. It's because of the lamentations of the items, he reveals. By listening to those laments, I know exactly when to proceed. Oh, and also when it's time to back off. Listening to the celebrations and the sorrow. Oh, I can pinpoint the perfect timing and the flow of luck. At this moment, our hero declared, "The lucky streak is with me." He felt it in his bones. Without a second thought, without a hint of hesitation, Taejun slammed his finger down on the enhancement button. With that button pressed, there was no turning back. He'd made his choice. The demon watching him thought our hero was crazier than Batman himself. This guy was out of his mind. Because even the demon knew the odds were practically impossible. But regardless, the other three watching were also incredibly anxious. You could cut the tension with a knife. A whole audience had gathered, eyes glued to the screen. Everyone's attention was locked on the obsidian crystal, holding their breath with anticipation. And then Taejun just started screaming, a primal yell of pure shock and excitement. Something absolutely unbelievable had just happened. History had been made. The obsidian crystal had been enhanced all the way to +10. No way. For everyone present, this was a first. They'd never seen anything like it, witnessing an item being upgraded to its maximum level. The demon couldn't believe the unbelievable situation unfolding before him. He was stunned, so he starts making accusations. The demon accuses Taejun of using some kind of cheat. Our protagonist retorts, saying that the real cheater here isn't him, it's someone else, because the demon was trying to swindle a newbie. But the demon insists that Taejun must be using some kind of hack and decides to report him. So our group decides to block the demon. And after that, they leave the area. The two of them had logged out of Parsley Market and were synchronizing back with the Earth dimension. Back at the hospital, Taejun celebrates getting an item upgraded to its maximum level. Miri is still extremely nervous because that was incredibly risky, but our hero reveals he had a plan B just in case things went south. And Mary can't help but wonder who the real demon in this situation actually is. Now our protagonist is armed with some valuable intel on the Parsley Market. Taejun is thrilled. He can finally use that magic staff. Cut to the Clear Sky Guild. Inside Miss Sill's office. Someone's here for a visit. Someone's knocking at the door. She tells them to come in. It's the hunter Taejun, greeting her with a bow. He says he's recovered enough now. He can even walk. So she gets straight to the point. She asks him what he wants from her. Miss Sill remembers that he received the best vocation in the rank B test. If her intuition is correct, Taejun could end up positioning himself as one of Korea's greatest hunters. Taejun then steps forward, telling Miss Sill that it's her he wants. To be more specific, Taejun wants her ability. This didn't land well, because Miss Sill misunderstood what he meant, but she apologizes for the misunderstanding. Taejun, on the other hand, is left wondering how his words could have been misinterpreted. The group had reached the third level of the basement. Taejun wanted Miss Sill to remove a curse from a certain staff, so she asks him to show her the item. She asks if he acquired it back when he was a D-rank hunter, and he confirms. Now, without wasting any time, Miss Sill attempts to identify the curse. She then unleashes the Spell of Spell. This is one of her prize S-rank abilities. It's an incredible skill that analyzes and completely nullifies the structure and form of a target ability. Curses, in the grand scheme of things, are fairly simple. They're essentially spell traps. So against Spell of Spell, they really don't stand a chance. Meanwhile, Taejun reveals that this is exactly what he was hoping for Obsidian Crystal. It has the amazing ability to analyze and store a target's skill. He might not be able to remove the curse, true, but he could potentially gain Sill's incredible ability. So he prepares to activate the item, anticipation building within him. He commands the Obsidian Crystal to copy the Hunter Sill's unique ability, but just then, something completely unexpected happens. Something slams into Sill with tremendous force. Everyone is stunned, completely bewildered. Then the horrifying truth becomes clear. It's a monster had just appeared there. Without wasting a second, Taejun rushes to help the young woman. Taejun strikes the creature with fury, enraged that it interrupted his attempt to learn an S-rank skill.
But
Something strange happens. The creature wasn't defeated by the blow. A physical attack wasn't working. So he decides to use his fireball. The creature is hit head-on. Worried about Miss Sill, she admits she let her guard down, but it wasn't a fatal blow. He then asks where the creature came from. Miss Sil replies that it's not just a simple monster. Strange as it may seem, that's the personification of the curse itself. And the only way to remove it without destroying the staff, it seems like she's lost her spell ability completely. She can't use that ability anymore because the creature hit her with a debuff. And for now, she thinks the best option is to get rid of the cursed spirit using brute strength with incredible force. She then says it's a pity to have to destroy the staff, but she'll reward him later. Don't worry, she assures him. Titan is definitely not thrilled with this idea, because not only will he lose his rank S ability, he won't be able to get rid of the curse either. He's in a real bind here, so he asks if she happens to have an ability called Power Infusion. She replies that she does. Tidun then asks her to lend him her spell ability. Everything. Ms. Sil says that the cursed spirit wouldn't be defeated with a borrowed ability, it's just not strong enough. Borrowed. Because this is a high-level curse. This is some serious dark magic we're talking about. And with an insane level of complexity, it's a real puzzle to solve, even for Miss Sil. Dispelling the magic would take a considerable amount of time. Our hero says he understands, but he earnestly asks her to trust him. Just for a few moments, Miss Sil is taken aback, momentarily speechless. She observes that he's being remarkably persistent about undoing the curse. She decides to give in, but asks him to follow her instructions meticulously. Miss Sil urges him to be alert and focused. Finally, Tidil receives a significant boost with the Power Infusion rank S buff. Our hero is now temporarily authorized to wield spells of S rank. He's absolutely thrilled by this. The obsidian crystal has already been positioned. Everything's in place. So they decide to begin. Tidil then performs the Spell of Spells, and the obsidian crystal had successfully saved the ability. Spell of the spell! The cursed spirit seemed to be affected. Tidun was combining this ability with a flame. It's like he's calculating something. Meanwhile, Miss Sil tries to give instructions regarding these calculations. But Tidun explains that it's not necessary. This leaves her utterly confused, because it's something that can't be done purely on instinct. Still, Tidun just asks her to trust him. And so, they continue with the exorcism of the cursed spirit. Tidun prepares to finish off the creature, refining his modified ability. Spell Dispel Macro. With that, the cursed spirit was annihilated. Miss Sil is left in utter disbelief witnessing it all. Even the fastest learning mages? It's like, would I not pull off that technique so flawlessly? She's left wondering just how talented this DM really is. The cursed spirit also has been completely dispelled by the skill Spell Dispel. And the curse contained within the staff has been completely removed as well. Clearly very satisfied with the outcome. Our protagonist celebrates internally, but he tries to give some credit to Miss Sil, of course. All the while, she's incredibly impressed. She thinks that joining her guild, Clear Sky, would be selling him short. Clear Sky? So, she suggests he join the Roaring Guild instead. It would be an excellent option for someone as skilled as he is. The scene cuts to Mount Guanaki, the Roaring Guild's headquarters, where someone is demonstrating the Rising Dragon Fist technique. It's that red afro-haired hunter, saying our hero made a brilliant choice. An excellent choice indeed. Tidun's there to observe the hunter perform this particular technique, this incredible technique. So he gets ready for action. First, he executes the Phantom Step. Then he unleashes the Rising Dragon One-Horn Strike. Tidun is blown away by the performance. He was more concerned with the capture angle of the obsidian crystal, which was scanning all those techniques. The scene cuts to the Shinwa Guild building, Ranian Island. The place where Taehyung was practicing, using his newly acquired techniques, Rising Dragon and Dragon Strike. Our hero is seriously impressed with the effectiveness of the copy made by a top-tier item. So, he expresses his gratitude to the guild leader for handing over those techniques for free like they were nothing, everything included. But then, reality hits. Due to his pathetically low strength stats, the awesome power of those skills has been seriously nerfed. He sighs. Guess there is no such thing as a free lunch, huh? Not in this world, anyway. Of course not. If he'd known this was the catch, he might have actually listened to that gym rat's advice back on Earth. Just then, a familiar sight pops up, a quest window. Apparently, Timejin, that's him, needs to practice those techniques. He glances at the timer and groans. At least an hour of training to complete this quest. Ugh. The motivation deflates like a punctured balloon. What he really wants is an easy life, handed to him on a silver platter. Our hero actually stops and thinks for a minute. Compared to the soul-crushing grind he endured in his previous life, this quest's demand is practically nothing. And since he's gotten this far, Tidun decides it's time to pump up his physical stats. Miri then encourages him to push himself even harder. Meanwhile, the scene cuts to the lovely young lady humming a tune. She's bringing Tidun some food. But when she gets there, something surprises her. Tidun is shirtless and drenched in sweat. He's sporting the chiseled physique of a gym rat. But she also notices that he's been acting strangely lately. Recently, that is. The Tidun she knew from before was very different. He's a fiercely competitive Tidun now. What's more, he's become a talent who's caught the eye of the biggest guilds. His growth has been phenomenal. It's like watching a butterfly emerge from its chrysalis. She's happy for him. However, it seems that Taidun is drifting further and further away. Behind her, the leader surprises her. He asks about the Vishin sword technique that she's been practicing. However, she becomes extremely worried because she booked the training room without authorization. But he reassures her, saying that he completely trusts her. The leader says he sensed a distinct aura, but now he sees it was the hunter Taejun using everything he had. He notices something strange about the martial technique that he was using, so he decides to approach the hunter, Taejun, and congratulates him on passing the rank B exam. Taejun then thanks him for his kind words. Then, the leader asks if he's still a freelancer, and Taejun answers that he is. So, the leader asks if it's okay if he makes a proposal. The leader explains that he has scheduled an expedition in 4 days, with Miss Kyan leading the team. A member got injured, so they needed a substitute, but Lius interrupts. At this point, she's worried, because this expedition might be too dangerous for the hunter. Taejun, she informs them that it's a grade 2 dungeon that was recently discovered, so there could be a lot of unknowns, and she's concerned about Taejun's safety. The protagonist is impressed by this, but he thinks that his friend is underestimating him too much. The leader reminds them that it's just a suggestion and says that Taejun would be able to clear that dungeon without any trouble. And he goes on to say that Taejun would benefit more from it, training with actual monsters. Then it hits him, the perk from his ability would increase tenfold when training with real monsters. Taiju says he's in, he accepts, but he has one question. He wants to know if the freelancers get to keep the magic stones they acquire. From this, with that settled, our group leaves the area. We see his phone light up with a message. Someone is reminding Taejun to be on time. Meanwhile, Mary is worried about something else entirely, because the person responsible for sabotaging the test still hasn't been caught. With everything going on, Titan tries to reassure her. He points out that he'll be with guild members this time, but Mary wonders if it's safe to trust this particular guild. Theoretically, there's nothing to worry about, because the two guilds have been friendly for a long time. Besides, the Shinroa guild has absolutely no chance of being involved. In that incident, Titan reminds Mary that he has mastered deadly techniques, so he wouldn't have any difficulty defeating enemies. But she thinks this is overconfidence. The protagonist retorts that it's just the truth. Finally, the two arrived at the designated location. There, a girl greets Taidun. The group then introduces themselves. Shoy, the lancer, and a healer. And last but not least, little Noah, the newest member. Titan then asks if everyone is ready. His companion there says that one more person is missing. The day before, one of the members got injured, so they had to urgently call for another hunter. Their group conversation is interrupted. Just then, a car pulls up, and someone inside yells for them to get out of the way. A man gets out of the car. He's a middle-aged guy, and he's radiating arrogance. The others are taken aback. They're intimidated by the man's attitude and appearance. Taijun decides to greet him anyway, but the man just stares him down for a long moment. Then, out of nowhere, he starts spitting. He demands to know who the hell our protagonist is. The man completely ignores Taijun. Taijun is understandably furious at this point. He's never been treated like such garbage before. Seeing how upset he is, the lady there tries to calm him down, saying that despite his rotten personality, his skills are incredible, even for a top-ranked hunter. He abuses his freelance status to hoard all the magic stones, leaving his team with absolutely none. Not even enough to pay for medicine. That lady there mentioned she didn't want to work with him, but she had no choice. Titan had finally met someone as greedy as himself. With everything. He's surprised he hadn't encountered someone like this before. This guy was the unaffiliated, top-ranking A-class hunter. Titan starts thinking about something mischievous at that. The scene cuts to the inside of the dungeon, where a horde of zombie monsters charges towards our group. That lady, she tells everyone to stay calm and hold their positions, but your group is already spiraling out of control, he observes. That ranked hunter, and he's saying they shouldn't waste time on low-level monsters, and he's complaining that their attacks aren't efficient enough, right? At this point, he narrates, the lady there scolds him for acting impulsively. She warns him that he could end up putting the whole team in danger by acting that way. But the guy just mocks her. He continues, saying she'll never achieve anything, being so passive. The guy then adds, strong hunters earn more money. And again, he belittles the lady there as the leader. Taijun was watching this whole scene unfold, and he's getting seriously ticked off. The scene cuts to the Duke's castle, where the NPC was greeting our group. The young man tells him to cut the small talk and get straight to the point. The NPC then agrees, saying he doesn't intend to linger here much longer. It's a cursed place, not meant for humans. But long ago, the ancestors found a sacred artifact that could suppress the evil energy, thus purifying the these lands with its consecration. Taijun then says, someone must have stolen this artifact. The NPC simply confirms it, saying that the lands can return to normal if the artifact is recovered. The old man gives one last clue, saying that the artifact was broken into pieces and scattered in different directions. The young man comments that a quest to search for something is too easy. The group chimes in, agreeing that these kinds of quests don't usually have a boss fight. According to the NPC, the fragments were scattered in 4 directions: north, south, east, and west. However, the young man cuts her off. He argues that quests like this don't require much thought. It's obvious they should split up to search. But the lady interjects, saying that it's safer to stick together while searching. Even so, Taijun agrees with the young man's idea to split up. Our NPC's plan is to join forces with the hunter Kim. With everything decided, our group sets off to find the artifacts. Taijun makes a scene, exclaiming that it's an honor to be working with Hunter Kim, and that he was inspired by him to become a hunter. Skilled hunters deserve more fame and money. That's the basic law of this world. Taijun then says, he's resolved to follow the example of someone great, like him, someone who possesses those 2 key qualities. Hunter Kim is pleased to hear this. He says the young man has the right mindset. That's the spirit. The 2 exchange a final, respectful nod and then set off, arriving at the cemetery. The atmosphere there feels heavy, charged with tension. Taijun asks if he thinks the artifact is here. He points out that there could be all sorts of monsters lurking about, especially because of these artifacts. Our NPC then asks if he could ask a favor. Hunter Kim is intrigued. He tells him to get it to the point, spit it out. Taijun explains that since he's just starting out, he'd like to handle a smaller area on his own. He's still a newbie, after all. Hunter Kim figures that's fair enough, so he heads off, leaving that section of the cemetery to Taijun. Hunter Kim is already itching to get into the fight, impatiently waiting for the monsters to show themselves. But then monsters start showing up in Taijun's area, and he even manages to snag a high-grade magic stone. Kinyo congratulates him, impressed by his luck. Meanwhile, not a single monster has appeared in his own area yet. Speaking of which, over in the NPC's designated zone, monsters are spawning left and right, one after another. It's a monster party. And meanwhile, Hunter Kim just stands there, watching the chaos unfold. He starts to wonder, why are all the monsters only appearing on Taijun's side of the field? It's a bit fishy, isn't it? The only logical explanation he can come up with is that the NPC knew exactly where the monsters would spawn. So the spotlight's on the NPC's navigation skills, apparently. Hunter Kim initially thinks Taijun couldn't possibly be that sly. Maybe it's just a coincidence? But he decides to take the initiative anyway. He's going to use a skill he's been saving up. It's a shout, with an apparent knack for provoking that he actually had. A skill, that specific skill. Taijun had been waiting for this. Taijun remembers his friend Ali talking about skills. She's the one who told him about Hunter Kim's taunt skill, and she asked why he was interested in Hunter Kim's abilities. He replied that this information might come in handy someday. Back to the present. Taijun is glad he used taunt now. Hunter Kim has no idea when the monsters are hiding around there, and now Hunter Kim has all the aggro. He can monopolize the situation. Kim is surprised by the number of zombies. Even the most powerful monsters have shown up there. Talk about a bad day. Taijun figures he's about to become zombie food. Not exactly the career change he was hoping for. Hunter Kim is starting to panic. Things are getting hairy fast. He urgently calls our hero, begging him to come help immediately. It's all hands on deck. With everything. Taijun hesitates for a moment, remembering that they both have their own assigned territories. He's worried about stepping on toes, about intruding on Hunter Kim's, but Kim tells him to cut the formalities and just get over there already. No time for red tape when you're facing a monster horde. Taijun agrees instantly, no more hesitation. But first he cheekily asks if it's okay if he happens to wipe out all the monsters himself. Just a bit of friendly competition, you know? Without wasting another second, Taijun activates his phantom steps and unleashes a dizzying flurry of attacks. A whirlwind of motion and power. Now he brings out the big guns, using the Rising Dragon Strike. Kim can't believe his eyes. This is a serious display of strength. He's left wondering, is this guy really just a B-rank hunter? There's something more here. Finally, Taijun takes a break, catching his breath after the incredible assault. Our protagonist starts bragging about all the magic stones he's acquired. Tae-hyun praises Hunter Kim for using the town skill. He suggests they should head back, now that they've secured the artifact. But Taijun insists they should help other groups. He asks Hunter Kim to continue using his town skill. In another area, someone expresses their gratitude to Taijun. The female hunter there is immensely grateful for their help. Meanwhile, Taedun manages to complete his mastery quests. With maximum mastery, the techniques can be used with 100% effectiveness. The guy with the hat remarks that Tae-dun has handled so many on his own. This is because he already possesses a massive pile of magic stones. Then Tae-jun points out that such a large quantity of magic stones could potentially be a problem. So he decides to divide the entire amount amongst the group. The group is definitely impressed by this gesture, but they're also a little worried about it. Still, Tae-jun insists that they should divide them fairly. Hai explains that it was thanks to Hunter Kim's help and his inspiring example that this was even possible. Then Tae-jun turns to Kim and asks if it's truly all right to divide his magic stones. Kim confirms that it is. At that moment, the entire group is completely taken by Tae-jun's charisma. The group then expresses their gratitude to both Tae-jun and Hunter Kim for their generosity. Meanwhile, Hunter Kim wears a rather bewildered expression. Meanwhile, our dear Hunter over there seems incredibly grateful. Mary's clearly confused by the protagonist's act of kindness. With everything, he explains that he's building a good reputation. Back at the castle, the group has returned the artifacts. The NPC is grateful, saying that this place can come alive again. Then he asks the hunter to hand over the artifacts, but for some reason, she's hesitant. Something feels off, so she decides to ask the Lord something. It was about the assigned mission, which he said he couldn't defend the location from the barbarians, resulting in the release of the cursed seal, killing many in the process. The NPC confirms that's exactly what happened, and she continues asking how the NPC survived then. The castle lord pauses to think for a moment. Then he compliments her intelligence. The Lord says that it's too late, because he's regained a significant amount of power, especially since the group brought back the artifacts. This, my friends, was a hidden boss. The ultimate evil. A vampire. A high-ranking duke, no less. 2 whole levels of danger above what they expected. He explains that a dungeon like this wouldn't make sense without a final boss. There'd be no way to complete the quest just by handing over the artifacts. So a double quest makes perfect sense. Completing the first one triggers the second. It's like a quest within a quest. And if this double quest theory holds up, then that seemingly harmless old NPC was the true boss all along. Mind blown. The vampire commands them to offer up the artifacts, to witness his glorious resurrection. But our heroine just stands there, watching him, silent and unreadable. And for some reason, she obeys. The vampire, Tae-jun, who tried to stop them, is attacked by the rest of the group. The whole situation made absolutely no sense. With everything, the group was under the influence of the Charm Evil Eyes spell. Tae-jun wasn't affected thanks to his spell notification ability. This leaves the vampire visibly impressed. Tae-jun retorts that he's not interested in old vampires, and that the vampire should try hitting on old ladies at a nursing home instead. By this point, the vampire had already recovered the artifacts and ordered the charmed group to attack Tae-jun. Miri asks him, "What do we do now?" Meanwhile, the vampire taunts him, saying that no matter how strong Tae-jun is, he can't attack his companions. At that moment, Tae-jun is about to be overwhelmed by the attacks, so he steels himself and prepares to use his ability. With swift finger strikes, he takes down his companions one by one, knocking them out cold in the process. This is far too easy for our protagonist. He effortlessly handles his entire group. Piece of cake for him, really. The vampire can't believe what he's seeing. Tae-dum says there's still one more thing he needs to do, and that's to strike the Hunter Kim one more time. Tae-dum then strides confidently toward the vampire, declaring that immense physical prowess, it's indistinguishable from magic. The vampire starts to panic. He cries out that he hasn't regained all of his power yet. So, in desperation, he orders his last remaining slave to attack. Tae-dum. She obeys without hesitation, and it's done. The huntress charges forward, but Tae-dum effortlessly evades her attack. Our protagonist is suddenly filled with worry. Uh-oh, what's going on? This time, our Wonder Woman's movements were just too fast. There was no way to defeat her using only fingers this time around. He'd need more. This time? Back there, watching the whole fight unfold, the vampire starts taunting them. He's saying that they love each other. It would be the perfect tragedy, wouldn't it? To die by the hand of someone you love. Tae-hyung really doesn't like hearing that. Miwi tells him to pay attention, and she had stopped moving. Something's up. Tae-jun wonders if the charm ability has been weakened. The impatient vampire demands she move, make a decision. So, he concludes, they really do love each other deeply. Apparently, strong emotions can break the charm. Knowing this, Tae-jun says he has something to tell the young lady there, remembering when she gave him a wallet as a gift. He then turns the focus onto that creature. Tae-jun reveals that he sold the wallet at a little carrot shop. He didn't want to do it, but our protagonist was financially broke. Tae-jun hopes his companion is angry with him after that revelation. Then he seizes the opportunity and lunges at the vampire. The protagonist begins to perform the spell notification, hitting the vampire in the eyes. The monster begins to scream in pain. It starts demanding that Tae-jun take his fingers out of its eyes, but Tae-jun says there's no way he's going to obey. Meanwhile, our hero gains a new ability. Awesome! It's called Eyes of Enchantment. Sounds powerful. And there's another ability kicking in too. It starts calculating the structure of the target's skill. Whoa, that's intense. But wait, skill Eyes of Enchantment has been nullified. What? Taijun has accomplished what he set out to do. He's on a roll. He casually asks the vampire how he's feeling. Cheeky. Meanwhile, his group is already starting to recover from everything. But the group is suffering from severe headaches from the blow. Ouch. The vampire starts complaining that this isn't possible. He's clearly rattled. His ability has never been undone before. He says, this is a first. It would only be possible if he ran out of mana. He's grasping at straws, so he demands that our hero explains how he did it. But Taijun coolly replies that there's no point in explaining now. Because the vampire is about to be finished off. Savage. Taijun tells him he can research it later. Burn. But you won't be able to do that once you're dead. Taijun retorts, a hint of steel in his voice. That's it. The vampire is absolutely enraged. He snarls, questioning how long Taijun will keep that smug smile plastered on his face. In a flash, the vampire lunges at Taijun, ready to tear him apart. Taijun braces himself for the attack. But in that very instant, their fearless warrior leaps into action, a whirlwind of motion. She intercepts the vampire's charge, stopping him dead in his tracks. Prada is stunned by her incredible display of skill. That was amazing, he exclaims, his eyes wide with admiration. He nods in Taijun's direction, echoing his sentiment. She confidently tells them to leave the rest to her. This is their moment. Knowing that the vampire can't use his mind control powers against her, she urges the group to prepare for a coordinated assault. The team rallies together, ready to take on the vampire as a united front. And so, a fierce battle erupts. Taijun watches with excitement, eager to see the group in action. They were kicking the vampire's butt. Everyone in the group felt the same surge of adrenaline. Noah, especially, didn't want to be a burden on our hero. He was determined to contribute. And as I'm saying this, the guy unleashes a flurry of shots on the vampire. The rest of the group wasn't slacking off either. They were bringing the heat. They told Taijun to leave it all to them. We've got this. The group had clearly been practicing their attacks, and it showed. The vampire was taking some serious, earth-shattering damage. Even the vampire himself was impressed by their teamwork. He couldn't help but acknowledge their skill. These weren't just random fighters thrown together. They were a well-oiled machine. The huntress in the group begins to chant. She's reciting an incantation, preparing for a powerful attack. You can practically feel the magic in the air. Then she unleashes a shattering strike. The attack was so powerful, it literally obliterated the upper half of the vampire. Gone, just like that. Is it over? Someone wonders aloud. The tension is palpable, and our hero says that's something you just don't say out loud. Oops! Poor guy. So he unleashes his ultimate 100% power fireball. Whoa! The protagonist declares himself someone who never lets his guard down, always vigilant. Meanwhile, the vampire is completely wrecked on the ground. Ouch! That's gotta hurt. The group's surprised the vampire resorted to a mental attack. Sneaky! Noah praises our hero. Well done. But he's also worried that someone might remember what happened before all this. Uh-oh, memory issues. In the end, thankfully nobody remembers a thing. Phew, crisis averted? The portal's already opened, and the group decides to grab a barbecue with everything. Now that's a celebration. Miss Lee notices that the fifth hunter has vanished. Where'd he go? He's found on the ground, completely knocked out cold. Whoa! What happened to him? Lee asks the protagonist what happened. Spill the beans. But he claims he has no idea. Suspicious. They weren't serious injuries, though. That's a relief. So, the group just carries him to the portal. The young girl asks if our protagonist wants to join them, but Taijun says he has some things to take care of. She doesn't like hearing that at all, but Taijun assures her it's nothing important. All he wants to do is analyze the layout of the dungeon. He knows he won't get another opportunity like this anytime soon. He asks them to think of it as a form of training. The group is genuinely impressed by someone so dedicated, and his companion there praises the silver-ranked hero's enthusiasm. She's happy he's decided to stay a bit longer, to study the place and everything. But she reminds him of one crucial thing. He shouldn't push himself too hard. The poor guy seems a bit taken aback by her concern. Then the group says their goodbyes, making plans to meet up later. Now, Mary is extremely curious to know what he's really up to. Mary knows him too well, and she's sure he doesn't actually want to study the dungeon. Taijun has had enough of his study time for now. He explains that he's checking something on the Parsley browser, a question mark indicating a hidden treasure. This makes him extremely excited to explore, but Mary is more impressed by the fact that the protagonist had studied dungeons in the past. The two of them then set off to explore the dungeon. Arriving at the location, there was nothing special there. Then he remembers to pull a book, like in some stories. And indeed, a passage had been opened. Mary is impressed that Taijun is actually correct about this. I'll protect you soon. But Mary interrupts him right at that moment, just as Taijun was taking his first step into the secret room. A trap was triggered. According to the intel, Mary had warned that the location was riddled with traps. Everything but it was impossible to pinpoint exactly where each individual trap was located. This situation suddenly feels incredibly dicey. Taijun starts racking his brain, thinking fast. With this threat looming,
Our hero decides to use something he's been
holding onto, he shouts, "Hear my call!" He grabs that magical staff! Taijun, it seems, is about to summon something fierce. Miri is completely bewildered by this turn of events, and just like that, a summoning circle appears. A monstrous being emerges and greets its summoner.
I am Iratus.
The creature booms, introducing himself as a harbinger of death. He declares his readiness to serve.
With everything he has.
The skull-faced Iratus is visibly taken aback when he sees who summoned him. Iratus wonders aloud, inquiring if our hero managed the summoning with the help of that magic staff. To call him forth, our protagonist confirms that it is so. I use the staff, he says. But Iratus is skeptical, declaring it impossible. He points to the cursed spirits that dwell within the staff. Titan responds that he defeated the cursed spirit within the staff. Iratus flatly refuses to believe it. Titan casually replies that it was a bit complicated. At that moment, our protagonist subtly intimidates Iratus. Iratus tells him that he can't speak so casually. Not to his master, because no matter how he managed to summon him, Iratus now has to obey him. Taidil finds this strange, because Iratus used to talk like a cute little Japanese girl, with all the desu and masu. Iratus claims he has no idea what the protagonist is talking about. Taidil then orders Iratus to advance. He's confused, understandably, but the protagonist orders him to follow his commands, or he'll regret it. Big time. Immediately, Iratus dashes off towards the designated location. But something goes wrong. As Iratus runs, he had just fallen into a trap. Iratus was just blasted with something. And once again, Titan summons the skeleton, ordering it to move forward again. And yet again, Iratus ends up falling into a trap, consequently turning to dust in the process. With this strategy, Titan marks the location of all the traps. Miri finds the strategy repugnant, but Taidun is resolute, saying he will continue with it. He explains that he doesn't show mercy to those who tried to kill him before. Miri says she understands his perspective on everything. The protagonist orders Iratus once again to move forward, and after all the hard work, Taidun praises Iratus' efforts, saying that he's the best trap detector someone could want. The repeated deaths made the skeleton more resilient. Taijun also noticed that the rats weren't dying as easily. Normally, a creature doesn't get stronger after repeatedly dying. This might be due to their explosive growth. Iratus is expecting to be rewarded. Taijun says they need to analyze this explosive growth after they get out of here. Iratus was looking forward to a reward, so he got pretty angry. He considered this disrespectful. Even immortals deserve some respect, after all. With that, Taijun decided to undo the summoning. Miri comments that he must be heartless. There were no more traps, and apparently they've reached the end of the path. Miri then asks if the protagonist suspects anything about this place. He answers he couldn't shake the feeling that a tombstone that size was suspicious. It didn't make sense for a tombstone to be so unnecessarily large. Not unless maybe there was something hidden inside. So, cautiously, he touches the giant stone, and the stone splits in two. Inside, there's a headless suit of armor, and it's holding something. A bracelet made from those propellers they found earlier. Remember those? It's hard to tell if it's valuable or just junk. They'd need to get it appraised to know for sure. Just then, Taijun starts practically begging for it to be worth a fortune. Miri calmly tells him that they don't need to pay for an appraisal. She's about to introduce him to the item appraiser. Taijun immediately grills her, wanting to know why she didn't mention this appraisal app about the item beforehand. But Miri shoots back, insisting she did inform him. He just wasn't paying attention. The protagonist wonders aloud if using this will trigger an automatic item analysis, like magic. And sure enough, the bracelet gets analyzed. Info spills out. Stats, attributes, and the vampire charm skill. This bracelet was a unique grade item. Lucky him. It also possesses the vampire's aesthetic ability, passively healing the wearer. Sweet! And the coveted vampire charm, which lets you control the minds of your targets. Titan celebrates his new acquisition, admiring its allure. The charm, however, only works on weakened humans. It's niche, for sure. But one day it'll come in handy. Okay, so it's a skill that only works on humans. But hey, it's something. And let's face it, there are humans everywhere. So our protagonist decides to explain something to Mary. He tells her that humans can be even worse than monsters. Just then, a figure appears who's been following him. He was following orders and possessed a stealth ability. While Tai was distracted, the hunter stealthily appears before him. He expresses his astonishment at Tai's rank jumping from D to B in just a single day. He tells Tai that the reason for his demise will be attracting too much attention. As he says, "Don't hate me for doing this." The hunter attacks Tai with everything he's got. but the attack is blocked by an automatic ability of Tai's, one that detects enemies without even needing to sense their presence. The stealthy hunter is bewildered by this defense. Tai, having sensed him, tells him to come out without hiding. Otherwise, our protagonist just goes straight for him, ready to beat him up. No more chit-chat. The protagonist launches himself at the guy, connecting a solid kick right in the middle of his back. Ouch! The stealthy guy definitely felt that one, but Tatum isn't stopping there. The guy's actually begging for mercy! He's pleading with Tai-Dum to stop hitting him, and Tai-Dum thinks the guy is being a total fool, acting like this after what he tried to pull. But the protagonist wants to know who this guy is. He introduces himself as Rhonda from the Red Hounds. Tai-Dum thinks that name rings a bell. Then it clicks. He remembers. This is a group of assassins who take on missions for money. Tai-Dum becomes very interested in what this group wants with him. The guy replies that he's just following orders. However, Tai-Dum isn't going to let this go quietly. Our protagonist takes a stand, preparing to take action. His goal? To gather more information, of course. So he uses the charm he acquired from the vampire. Talk about a useful skill. As he does, a scream echoes from outside the castle walls. Something's definitely going down. The scene cuts to where the action is unfolding. Two figures are anxiously wondering where their companion has disappeared to. Their friends have ran from the Red Hounds, and they're seriously worried. They're questioning if their comrade could even handle a measly rank B opponent. Apparently, this was the poor guy's first field mission. Rookie mistake? Just as they're lamenting about their missing friend and his ill-fated debut, Tai-Dum makes a grand entrance, dragging the missing guy by his hair. Ouch! And, while doing so, he's delivering a stern lecture about the group's bad behavior. Seems like someone's in trouble. Red Hounds. The group wonders if our protagonist got the information from their comrade, and he confirms that he did.
Tai-Jun!
He said he's there to gather even more information. The two guys from Red Hounds immediately go on high alert. The group is in shock. Their comrade leaked the information, even though that seemed incredibly unlikely. So he comes to the conclusion that the protagonist used some kind of mental ability. Tai-Jun praises the group for the trust that they have in each other. Despite all this, the Red Hounds members are incredibly annoyed. The guy realizes he's going to have to deal with Tai-Jun on his own. From the very beginning, as he prepares for combat, he warns our protagonist that he won't be leaving this place alive. Tai-Jun retorts that he'd like to see him try. Then the guy says he'll show him the special assassination technique he's trained for years to perfect. But before he can even perform the shadow strike, Tai-Jun lands a punch right to his face. Tai-Jun tells him that he's incredibly boring, and that he's starting to become bored. As Tai-Jun moves on to the next guy, our protagonist mentions that he's running low on mana, so they need to wrap this up quickly. And the guy has to spill everything he knows right now. The scene then cuts to that group being arrested under the custody of the Headquarters Alliance. It's revealed that they obtained the information about Tai-Jun ventured into a dungeon, and that's when they set up their ambush. They disguised themselves as dungeon explorers, patiently waiting. When they noticed Tai-Jun hadn't emerged from the dungeon, they went in to take care of him. The president said they lacked foresight. It was obvious this kind of thing would happen again, especially after the incident during the B-rank exam. Even so, the president didn't think they'd be so brazen, and so she apologizes for what happened. Tai-Jun tells her there's no need to apologize, because he was expecting this. Afro Red is furious to learn that, on top of going after Kang and Miss Yu, they were also targeting Tai-Jun. He wants to personally interrogate those responsible. However, Tai-Jun says it's not necessary, because he already possesses all the information. Everyone is incredibly impressed. They're amazed that Tai-Jun managed to obtain this information. Then the president asks, "Who sent you? Who would he send people after Hunter Tai-Jun and Miss Yu?" Our protagonist gives a suspenseful look. Then he reveals it was BA from the Saiyan Guild. Everyone is shocked to learn that leader Bayu was behind it. The mastermind, Afro Red, says that it is to be expected, because that person has a shady face. Bay, leader of a guild that jumped from rank 30 to 7 in recent years. His guild is known for doing anything to climb the ranks, but until now, nobody had any concrete proof to accuse that guild. Once Portadinho revealed everything, there was really nothing left to discuss. The president declared that she was gathering all the elite members, and heading straight to their base. This was for Miss Yu, and they were going to make them pay. Afro Red gets pumped up, saying he's in too. But that's when our protagonist chimes in, interrupting them. He asks if they can tag along too. He says he'd really love to see the face of the lunatic who dared try to kill him. And just like that, we cut to the Seong Guild's base. Our group, Ed, was starting to raise some serious hell there. Afro Red was tearing the place apart. Meanwhile, the members of that guild were completely bewildered, They had no clue what was going on, but the president simply states there's no need to explain. They know exactly why this is happening. Our group demands B appear immediately. Otherwise, the entire building will be destroyed. The members of the guild are shocked to hear this threat. Without another word, the president gives the order to begin. And just like that, a massive explosion rocks the outside. The scene cuts to the front of a vault, where a guy is calling for his boss. He informs him about the intrusion, but the boss wants to finish some business first. While he's securing some money, he says he regrets tremendously hiring those idiots. B blames the B rank hunter, Taejun, for the situation. So, he plans to just escape with the money, even though a guild leader shouldn't do that. But just then, an explosion goes off behind him. Someone just blew a hole right through the vault and finds B cowering inside. He's in shock. There's something he needs to do right now. It's Taejun, and he introduces himself immediately. The leader is stunned, completely taken aback. He demands to know how Taejun got there. Our hero replies that it's always good to catch up with people. Then the leader asks what the protagonist wants from him. He hadn't expected him to show up so brazenly. Right off the bat, the leader offers Taejun money. Taejun's eyes widen, and his mouth waters, just seeing all that cash. But dirty money isn't like a shot of alcohol you crave. Not right now. Instead, our protagonist just wants to confirm something. It's about the sabotage of the rank by promotion exam. Taejun demands to know if anyone else besides him was involved in all of this. The leader claims that he's the only one involved in that scheme. But Taejun isn't convinced for a second. He promises to beat the guy right then and there. The leader thinks to himself that Taejun is incredibly arrogant and self-assured. He barging in alone, demanding things as if the leader is supposed to be scared. The only ones the leader truly fears are Miss Sil and Afro Red. So, the leader prepares for battle. Taejun is taken aback, seeing him summon dark matter. Because of this, the leader becomes extremely confident. He tells Taejun that he should have accepted the initial offer. Taejun actually starts to wonder if he should have taken that deal. Dark matter is an S-rank skill with tremendous offensive power. It absorbs all energy around it, except for the energy of its summoner, of course. It also blocks most attacks from a distance, draining both mana and stamina. Getting close seemed impossible. Normally, Taejun would avoid this kind of fight altogether, but he argues that this dark matter isn't the real deal. The leader, however, thinks he's an idiot for trying to face it head-on, trying to counter his dark matter with a mere fireball?
Seriously.
Taejun retorts that the leader can always find other idiots, but not another him. And so, the protagonist throws a fireball right at the leader, the skill from B that he analyzed. It only replicates 10% of the power of the original skill, so it's clear he was bluffing the entire time. What a showman. And bam! B gets hit head-on by the fireball. Ouch! Blue flames engulf his body. It looks incredibly painful. He's rolling around on the floor begging for help. Poor guy. Oh, Tajin. Our hero is honestly surprised that the leader was actually this weak. Our hero, ever resourceful, throws a tank of aquarium water to put out the flames. Desperate times, desperate measures. Poor fishies. I hope they're okay. Tadinho says the leader has had enough. So he heads over to check if the leader has any tricks up his sleeve. You can never be too careful. Outside, you can see the building has been completely trashed. Looks like a war zone. Our group is congratulating each other, praising the excellent work. They did. Afro Red gets flustered and embarrassed by the praise. So cute. He brags that he had to suppress his true power. Typical hero stuff. To keep the rest of the building from collapsing. Titan wonders where Miss Sil has gone off to. Turns out, she's been busy collecting more evidence. While they were talking, she was on the case. And now Afro Red announces her return. Miss Sildis. She's found evidence of sabotage related to the rankbaism. Apparently, high-ranking officials were involved in the incident, but they're currently out of the country. Miss Sil reveals that so far only B's guild has been linked to the sabotage. Afro Red is floored. He can't believe that there are people who would accept that kind of dirty money. He makes his disgust clear. He's repulsed by that kind of behavior. B is on her knees begging for mercy. The officer asks if Taejin found Bae hiding in the basement. Taejin confirms that he did indeed find him in the basement. The S-rank hunter, Miss Sil, expresses her gratitude for our hero's incredible cooperation with everything. Taejin says he did it for personal reasons, because he believes that Bae wasn't the mastermind behind the rank B exam incident. He mentioned sealed dark magic and assassins. It doesn't make sense for just one person to have orchestrated it all. Taejin is convinced that there's a hidden force behind everything. So, his goal is to bring these people to light, because it's only fair that these people are punished. Miss Sil says she's impressed with Taejin's good deeds. Then she asks our hero if he's found the people who helped B. Our protagonist makes a suspenseful face at this moment, really drawing out the tension. Finally, he answers that he hasn't found anything, not a single clue. The scene immediately cuts to someone doing research on a computer. He's looking at a news article about Bea being caught in a scandal. It's Mr. Go from the Rorion Guild. He can't understand why B hired assassins. He is so confused and worried. Now this person is worried that they'll be implicated, that the investigation will lead to him. He is panicking in a little bit because he was involved in enchanting the sabotage of the exam. This guy is in deep. Just then, someone arrives and calls for him. The suspense! The man is his second in command, Hunter Cho, informing the protagonist that someone wants to speak with him personally. This sounds serious. The leader's eyes narrowed. Was this someone from the Sky Guild? He pressed. Or from the Wearing Young Guild? The name hung heavy in the air. He needed the full story. The vice leader shook his head, a grim look on his face. It's impossible to be certain. The person who delivered the message was wearing a mask, hiding their identity. They simply said they had a message to deliver, the vice leader continued. Nothing more. The message was, Flying Fly sends their regards, and they said you would understand. In that instant, the leader's face hardened. He was on alert, his mind racing. A cold dread washed over him. Could it be, did B confess everything? He desperately tried to rationalize. No, it's not possible. B wouldn't have... She wouldn't have given away the details of their secret negotiations. Just then, someone walked into Taejun's room. When he saw it was the leader, his face paled. His heart hammered in his chest. Instinctively, he blurted out, What's a famous hunter like you doing here? His mind raced. Was this a setup, an attempt at blackmail? Taejun's expression had turned sinister, promising nothing good. At that moment, he erupts in frenzied, unstoppable laughter. The scene has completely devolved into the ridiculous. Everything was utterly confusing. Both of them were completely lost. The leader decides to ask why Taejun is acting that way. Given how utterly ridiculous the situation had become, he orders the vice leader to stop him. This ridiculous scene continues for a while. Even Miri can't understand why he's doing this. She questions him, but our hero doesn't stop acting that way. The leader once again tells the vice leader to stop him immediately. Instantly, the vice leader goes after Taejun. The young man launches an attack on our protagonist, asking if he's trying to get himself killed right then and there. Meanwhile, the guildmaster just watches, completely bewildered. Taejun congratulates him and asks for the name of the guild's number one, Roryong. He says, adding that his ability to stop Taejun was truly impressive and that it had been enough for a test entry. So Taejun decides to introduce himself properly, which he does, introducing himself as a B-rank hunter. Taejun, the guild leader, asks why he made such a difficult entrance, and our hero responds that it was to test the skills of the guild he wishes to join. The leader thinks our protagonist is crazier than Batman. Another vice leader says he's seen all kinds of things, but never anything as stupid as this. Besides, this isn't a place just any idiot who doesn't know necromancy can enter. The poor guy decides to make fun of him, saying that it's no wonder that they're all still falling behind. Both of them defend themselves, asking what kind of guild or protagonist he thinks Rorion is. He's their founder. Hunter Go practically single-handedly built this guild, using blood magic, something no one else could even control. He redefined the concepts of necromancy, and with that, he propelled the guild into the top 5 in Korea. All thanks to him. The guild became synonymous with dark magic itself. But what will become of it now? With the founder retiring, the guild is on the verge of collapse. In times like these, you can't afford to be picky. There's a saying that you have to turn times of crisis into opportunity. Now, he declares, would be the perfect time to do it. He means letting Taejun join the guild. The guild leader is visibly uneasy with this suggestion. But Taejun isn't finished making his case. He asks the leader to take a look at a piece of paper. He says, with a confident smirk, that he's sure the leader will change his mind. The leader glances at the paper, and his face pales in shock. What's wrong? Taejun asks, feigning innocence. Why the reaction? The leader stammers, trying to play it cool. It's nothing, he says weakly, but it's clear as day now. Taejun knew about the whole scheme. He's been playing them all along, blackmail and all. The leader is trapped. He has no choice but to agree. So Taejun presses him. Do you accept my proposal? He practically barks at him to hurry up and sign the contract. The leader's seething with rage at Taejun's audacity. Meanwhile, the vice leader is watching this whole exchange with a growing sense of unease. It's unheard of to let someone who isn't a necromancer into the guild. The leader, realizing the vice leader's suspicion, scrambles for an explanation. He confidently states that, without a doubt, Taejun is proving to be a valuable asset, a skilled hunter bringing significant aid. But the vice leader? He's not buying it, not one bit. Doubts cloud his face. Nevertheless, he decides to extend a conditional olive branch. He declares that Taejun absolutely must master some necromantic abilities. No excuses. Otherwise, well, let's just say his initiation will be a painful learning experience. The scene shifts to a peaceful park nestled within the city. Taejun is taking a well-deserved break today, sipping his coffee and soaking up the warm sunlight and beautiful weather. But Miri is clearly on edge, her brow furrowed with worry over the recent unsettling events. Despite this, Taejun confidently reassures her that he has a plan in motion. With a knowing glint in his eye, Taejun reveals to Miri a mysterious item he managed to snag from the Red Hounds. It's a peculiar ring, one that possesses the power to mask his true identity. It's known as the Ring of the Hiding Hunting Dog. Now Miri realizes that Taejun can go wherever he wants safely.
So Miri
Questions why he decided to join this particular guild, since there are other guilds where he had good connections. Taejun agrees. He agrees, but says it would be a lot of work to join those guilds. Being called for regular internal expeditions, being called by the police to resolve incidents, being part of the top 3 guilds is a hassle. However, the Rua Young Guild is in 22nd place, without much spotlight. And that's perfect. Besides, he can negotiate the contract however he wants. She asks what he plans to do for now. The protagonist responds, "Go shopping." She's taken aback, surprised by his generosity. Taejun notices her reaction and asks what's wrong. According to Miri's observations, Taejun isn't usually one to splurge. Our protagonist argues that there's no point in hoarding money, and so the two set off to spend some cash. Finally, they arrive at a massive place. Taehyung never even dreamed of being able to enter a place like this before. She asks what this enormous place is. Taehyung decides to explain that since Miri is from another world, this is the world's largest hunter market. It has various levels with tons of options. It's called John. Mega Market, exclusively for hunters in Korea. Without wasting any time, the two of them head off to check out the items. It's then that someone approaches him, saying they recognize him. Taiden asks who this woman might be. She introduces herself as the guild master of their guild. This was Miss Cha. The protagonist is impressed, because she was the younger sister of the vice leader hunter, Chahayin. Taiden questions what a guild leader is doing there. She informs him that this mega market is managed by her. Taiden is taken aback by this revelation. He apologizes for not knowing this information. Changing the subject, Miss Cha asks if he has any free time. She's heard about his recent performance, of our protagonist's heroic actions during the expedition into the cursed territory. She emphasizes that if it weren't for our hero, they wouldn't have been able to complete the expedition at all. And as a token of their immense gratitude, she wants to offer him some tokens of appreciation. Taejun politely expresses his thanks and says that he'll accept because he wasn't acting out of a desire for personal gain or reward. The leader says she understands Taejun's point of view completely, but still she insists once more. She reveals she was about to allow our protagonist to choose anything he wanted from their exclusive stock of VIP items. Back in that massive marketplace, the leader emphasizes that the item is truly exclusive and VIP. If he really won't accept anything, then there's nothing more she can do. And just as she's about to leave, Taejun hesitates for a moment. Our hero suddenly finds himself intensely curious. He's itching to see what goodies are on the VIP list of items. The really good stuff, you know? Inside the elevator, the team leader, ever perceptive, comments that Taejun is more straightforward than he appears. She admits she initially expected him to be this super serious, sophisticated type. Given all the rumors swirling around and the protagonists, my achievements. Taejun, ever humble, apologizes for unintentionally building up her expectations. Oops, he seems to say without saying it, but the leader's actually relieved he's so down to earth. It's refreshing, really, all things considered. She does mention, though, that Seiram might not be as thrilled about it. My mind's racing. What does that mean? But before I can dwell on it, we arrive. Okay, she says, gesturing around the impressive space. Feel free to drool over whatever catches your eye. And drool we do, my jaw practically hits the floor when I see the Vieb collection of rare treasures. It's insane. We both can't help but silently wonder, just how much does all of this cost? We're talking serious money. And they start thinking that this is one of the richest people in the world. The leader asks Taejun, who is practically drooling, if he liked anything, and clearly, he'd spotted something that caught his eye, so he points to a specific item. The guild leader comments that he has refined taste, because the items there were once used by legendary guild leaders. For example, the leaders of the biggest guilds in Korea. However, those items are too old to keep using. That's why she says he might want to look at something besides those. Just then, a subordinate appears, and announces that the director of the Ryan Guild has just arrived. The leader, oh no, she'd completely forgotten she had a super important meeting, so she quickly bids farewell to Taejun. She's actually quite impressed by his exemplary behavior, how polite and well-mannered he is. Especially getting back to those gauntlets. She asks, are you really interested in those old things? The gauntlets. The broken dragon shield. Its durability had reached 0. It was practically falling apart. Taejun confirms, that's right. But there was something else that caught his eye. Something more. The item has synergy with the Rising Dragon skill series. Rising Dragon. And what a coincidence. He has a quest that requires him to find an item with that synergy. Then Taejun remembers that the status window never gives him an impossible quest. So there has to be a way to repair that item. Taejun starts saying he'd do anything for a way to repair the item. The protagonist is dead serious. when he says he'd do anything or that he means it. So he starts thinking how he could possibly get the item repaired. At that moment, someone steps in and asks what he meant by that. There was a conversation happening just behind him about paying an additional fee. It was the guild leader in a heated discussion at their meeting. Taidun begins to consider the conversation he was overhearing. So he thinks about offering his help in order to gain some leverage, thus putting the guild leader in his debt. He's like a little puppy. He's rushing to Miss Che's aid, eager to be her loyal companion. That was a pretty stressful meeting, and the leader was clearly nervous about the situation. A man named Kang, sitting across from her, was trying to drive the price down, insisting on getting a deal that heavily favored him. The guild leader thinks to herself, "This guy is really pushy." Just then, Taedeum arrives at the scene. He announces that he heard a lot of noise coming from this room. Kang says he doesn't know who this man is, and demands to know who let him barge in like that. He informs Taedeum that the two of them are in the middle of an important negotiation, but nevertheless, Taedeum interrupts them, intrigued by this negotiation. He really can't stand negotiations. So, our protagonist basically crashes into the scene like he's parachuting in, right smack dab in the middle of a negotiation, and he boldly declares he wants in on the action. "I want to participate," he says. The man at the table raises an eyebrow. "Who's this guy?" he wonders. Meanwhile, Taijun is busy sizing up the item at the heart of the negotiation. The target, if you will. Turns out, the man he's talking to is a representative from the Ryan Guild. They're the big shots when it comes to item appraisal and evaluation. In fact, this guild has a near monopoly in appraisal services, which means they basically control the prices. Taejun steps forward and introduces himself. He announces he's the legal advisor for Director Chai Aaron, making it sound pretty official. Then he cuts to the chase and asks the man, "So what seems to be the problem here?" All the while, Miss Tia looks utterly bewildered, like she's watching a tennis match. The guild rep explains that they have a huge appraisal request, a mountain of items, and they need it done in a week. That kind of workload requires a lot more manpower, meaning higher fees. It would practically double the initial price. Taidun says he understands, but something feels fishy about this. Taidun questions if they, a guild, supposedly specializing in appraisals, how could a guild that proclaims itself a specialist need a whole week to complete this kind of job? He says that had he known this beforehand, he definitely would have looked for someone else. The man gets visibly irritated upon hearing this. He then challenges Taedun to go ahead and risk losing them, warning that a shoddy appraisal could destroy the item entirely. Going after another guild presents a serious risk of the cheap turning expensive. Besides, the man doubts that there even is a guild that does the same kind of work. Miss Tia tries to interrupt him, saying that it's enough already. Taidon apologizes for causing any inconvenience. At the moment, as the protagonist leaves the room, the guy says he must have gotten the message. So he uses this situation to pressure Miss Tia even more. Suddenly, they are both interrupted by someone greeting Miss Tia shamelessly. He introduces himself as a new appraiser who had just walked in there with the utmost audacity, saying that his evaluation won't take more than an hour. He asks if he can start now. The protagonist asks the other appraiser to leave. For a few moments, the guy gets extremely nervous about this behavior, saying Taejun could be sued if he keeps obstructing business. So he tells him to go home and stop messing around. The man is mocking, saying the protagonist thinks this is a circus. But at this moment, the protagonist asks him to analyze an item, saying, "You're curious how an item like that would take so long to be analyzed." The protagonist informs him that an appraisal takes less than 10 seconds. And if that's the case, the protagonist claims that even he could be an appraiser. The representative asks his coordinator to double check if it's really been appraised. "But I'll try to touch the artifact." And then someone interrupts. He's saying he needs to be sure that if he states something, he doesn't want to be seen as a fraud. He needs to be credible. So if he's going to make a confident assessment, he needs to offer some guarantees. At this, the representative starts to chuckle. He understands that Taejun wants to make a bet. So the representative proposes that he try to evaluate everything in just 1 hour. The bet is for $1 billion. Taejun praises the representative's courage, but immediately he accepts the representative's proposed bet. But he's not quite satisfied. He suggests raising the stakes to 10 billion. That's when the leader intervenes. She says the amount of the bet is crazy, and so is the idea of evaluating everything in under an hour. But Taejun tells her not to worry, because everything is meticulously planned, and right at that moment, Taejun had just finished appraising an item. The leader is utterly amazed by the scene unfolding before her. She questions how something like this is even possible. Upon learning that he is the appraisal app himself, the administrative system of Taejun, it's thanks to this system that he can perform such evaluations. And the information from these appraisals can even be shared with others. With this, our protagonist has the potential to make a fortune. The leader asks, completely floored if he was the one who did the appraisal himself. Taejun confidently confirms that he was. And not just that. Every single item in the place has already been appraised. The leader can hardly believe her own eyes. But Taejun calmly suggests she verify it for herself. And sure enough, it's not just the names. All the information had been thoroughly assessed. The leader is now left wondering how Taejun managed to pull something like this off. The representative and his subordinates are utterly shocked by the scene unfolding before them. They mutter about the sheer insanity of it all. Our protagonist chimes in, saying that he shouldn't have made the bet if he wasn't completely sure of the outcome, considering the situation. Perhaps he should be more careful next time. But the representative angrily accuses Taejun of pulling some kind of con. He claims that everyone there is in on this elaborate scheme. Despite all this, the leader firmly states that the items were indeed properly evaluated. And what's more, it was done right in front of him. Everything was conducted according to the betting contract they agreed upon. The man owes 10 billion, that is. He's in deep. So the protagonist demands he transfer the money immediately. No time to waste. The CO is in complete despair, utterly crushed. He can't believe he just lost 10 billion in a single bet. Unbelievable. His subordinates rush to his side, helping him retreat from the scene. He's a mess. Titan comments that it was a truly pathetic sight to behold. What a loser. With all this, the leader states that this is a situation they can't just pretend didn't happen. This is serious. Ignoring it is not an option. With that evaluation method, he could throw the entire assessment market into the trash. This is devastating news. In other words, he could literally destroy all the guilds that do evaluations. He's a game changer. But she's dying to know how it's even possible. This Taejun's appraisal method, what's the deal with it? But Taejun, ever the mysterious one, just says it's a secret. Then, quick as a wink, he changes the subject. He brings up that old gauntlet from earlier, and he proposes a deal, a proposition, if you will. If she hands over that item to him, Taejun will give her a hint on how to appraise items herself. The leader starts to seriously consider Taejun's offer. It's a tempting one. Finally, she agrees to give him the item. Deal. But now, the burning question. How does this appraisal thing even work? She wants to get straight to the point, to know the secret behind the magic. Taejun gives her that classic oh-so-suspenseful look of his. Then, with a dramatic flourish, he agrees to spill the beans. Time passes. Taejun has gotten exactly what he wanted from this exchange. And with a polite nod, he bids the leader farewell. Her subordinate, curious, asks if she managed to learn anything of substance, who claims that he revealed everything before leaving. This makes the subordinate incredibly curious to know. The secret, according to the protagonist, it's to look at items with your heart. The subordinate thinks this is absurd, but the leader says that he never intended to reveal it, or simply couldn't. Even with everything, she's not going to let this slip through her fingers. She's determined to find a way and to bring Taejun into her guild. The scene cuts to an apartment. Taejun is thrilled with his latest acquisition. It was a real struggle to get his hands on it, even so. Even though it's a legendary item, right now it's just a piece of junk. MANHWA wonders if there's any way to repair the item. Taejun admits he has no idea how to fix it, but for now at least. Our protagonist says he's in possession of the item. Miri suggests checking out the Pursley marketplace. Since there are users from all dimensions there, yes, probably there's someone who can do this kind of repair. Taejun is a little hesitant about venturing into that world. Again, but Miri suggests it's not necessary. She believes he can just make a post on Taeju, so he decides to do just that. He creates a post. He asks if anyone is capable of repairing the item in question. Prada wonders if it will work. Will we get any responses? But Mary admits she's not sure. We can only hope. Taedong chimes in, saying they don't need to rush things for now. Let's take our time. The important thing right now, he emphasizes, is that item. Thanks to that executive leader, he's able to do some shopping. I can finally get some stuff. He's thinking ahead to the initiation ceremony. Miri expressed her concerns about divine attributes. We need to be careful. She explains that a guild specializing in black magic will be present, which means Taejun interjects, explaining that items like this one are necessary for duels against necromancers. We'll need all the help we can get. But Miri raises a crucial point. Aren't items like that forbidden? During this kind of showdown, Taejun, ever the cool one, tells her to just sit back and watch the show. Cut to the imposing front of the Worm Guild. Intriguing name, right? As he's being escorted inside, Taejun glances around, a touch of anxiety in his voice. Am I late? The leader gives him a reassuring look. Actually, you're right on time. Then comes the kicker. This ceremony, it's actually a duel. A duel against none other than the guild's executive leader, Mr. Joe himself. And boy, is everyone hyped to see what this Hunter Taejun is really capable of. They make their way to the arena, the tension practically radiating off the crowd. And there he is, a lone figure standing in the center. The protagonist, never one to mince words, blurts out, "Who's the bald dude?" It's pretty clear the people around him are trying to get under his skin. I mean, come on, how could a B-rank hunter possibly know necromancy? It just doesn't add up. The vibe is strong. These guys are definitely looking to humiliate Taejun. But what bothers him the most is the fact that all necromancers are bald. Taejun says it's due to the side effects of using necromancy. Ugh, the vanity. The opponent then greets him, a smirk playing on his lips. He asks if our hero is familiar with the terms of their little contest. He clarifies that they'll compete using only necromancy. No outside help, no tricks. Titium agrees to the terms with a steady gaze. The stakes are high. If our protagonist wins, he gets to join the guild. No strings attached. But if he loses, he'll be enslaved for eternity. Yikes. Titium had a feeling it would be something like this. No pressure. The Hunter of O, he thinks, is the guild's biggest power player in Worm, controlling operations and finances. What a control freak. What an idiot with such a monopoly. It's no wonder the guild's been declining so much. Just when Titium thinks he's heard it all, his opponent adds, "There's one more condition." Oh boy. Because the opponent has just added some pretty steep new conditions. If Plata wins, get this, he wants to become the new CEO of the guild. And if that's not enough, Hunter Joe will be held accountable for all the financial losses suffered by its members. Talk about pressure. With all this drama unfolding, the audience suddenly has a really good show to watch. The crowd starts to seriously consider rooting for Taejun now. This is getting interesting, but Hunter Joe isn't backing down. He's fighting back. He vehemently argues that he hasn't caused any financial damage. And what's more, he claims he's the reason the guild worm hasn't collapsed already. Bold words. To prove his point, Hunter Joe summons a fearsome A-rank Death Knight. It's clear he wants to see just what our protagonist is capable of. He's throwing down the gauntlet. And with that dramatic gesture, he officially kicks off the duel. Oh dear. This doesn't look good. In response, our protagonist makes his own invocation, a swarm of D-rank rats. Yes, rats. The audience is understandably bewildered by this move. He's also summoned a soldier-type warrior. The crowd is whispering, wondering what he's planning to do with a skeleton soldier. The warrior. The hunter tries to mock what he's just witnessed. He can't believe his eyes. But just then, Tati gives the command for Eratus to attack. The enemy's summoned creature is hit with a devastating blow. The armor of his Death Knight is completely destroyed in a single swift movement. Our hero, brimming with confidence, starts to brag about the incredible power of his summoned ally. He turns to Eratus, a sly grin on his face, and asks if he enjoyed his new weapon. Then he pretends to feel a little guilty. It's such a rare item, he says, with divine attributes, you know? His opponent is absolutely stunned. He can't believe what he's hearing. He's never seen a summoned creature wielding a weapon, let alone one with such powerful divine attributes. This is unheard of. Mana offers a wide range of attributes, apparently, and each attribute comes with its own set of weaknesses. The power gap between their abilities is immense. This is a clash of titans. You've got to feel for him. He's prepped Eratus for this battle like no other, and he's succeeded in evolving the skeleton, giving him a crucial edge. This evolution allows him to withstand even divine attributes. A game changer. The protagonist gives the command, Eratus, the harbinger of death himself, unleash your fury. Eratus responds instantly, a loyal servant heeding his master's call. He thunders towards the enemy-summoned creature, a whirlwind of bone and fury. But the creature is quick, narrowly dodging Eratus' devastating blow. Close call! The enemy-summoned being retaliates, preparing a counterattack of its own. But with everything he's got, Eratus raises his shield, a bulwark against the onslaught. What a defense! Taedun, watching this scene unfold, starts to boast about his invocation's unbreakable defense. A little premature, perhaps? He seems awfully confident in his summoned creature, but the protagonist's face is grim. Time to end this little game, he mutters. Then, Eratus begins to chant, his voice resonating with ancient power, a sacred incantation filling the air. The words he speaks are holy, imbued with religious fervor, a spell long in the making. He reaches out, grasping a sacred artifact, its surface gleaming with divine light. His voice booms. God proclaims, the tension is palpable. And as he throws that sacred artifact, Eratus once again commands, let there be light. At that very moment, a blinding light erupts in the middle of the battlefield. The brilliance is almost unbearable, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. Everyone is taken completely by surprise by the sudden burst of light. Some even say the light cleansed their very souls. That's how overwhelmingly powerful it was. With that immense amount of magical power unleashed, Hunter Joe, Up worries that even our protagonist might be affected. Then, as the dazzling light show finally subsides, Taidun triumphantly announces the end of the battle. The enemy's summoned creature has been utterly defeated, and Eratus somehow was immune to the divine attributes of the light, all thanks to the intense durability training he's received. Talk about being resilient. Taidun, brimming with confidence, demands his prize for winning the duel. He insists that Hunter Joe make good on everything he promised. The crowd is buzzing with anticipation. Can Taidun
really claim the entire reward?
Hunter Joe laments not having had a little more time. He remembers his agreement with the Bay, where his guild possesses a relic of light. Hunter Joe had planned to blackmail his own guild with information about their scheme. He'd even collected enough evidence to expose them all, but Hunter Ty's arrival ruined all his plans. So Hunter Joe wasn't about to give up that easily. Not after all his hard work. And now, clutching a blue heart in his hand, he prepares to do something drastic. The audience is horrified. Upon realizing that he's holding a forbidden item, even the guild leader is extremely worried about this. This could mean death for everyone here. Poor guy, he's on high alert now. So he begins to analyze the situation. Using his analysis skills, he knew right away that everyone here was about to head to the afterlife. This was the forgotten heart of the cursed, but the Hunter Joe doesn't care one bit. He tells everyone he'll see them in the next life. What a guy. Then he actually uses that forbidden item, and with it, the Black Death Bride is summoned. Rank unknown. This is serious. Everyone there thinks they're finished. Talk about feeling doomed. The creature then prepares to attack. Oh boy. It uses the skill Lemon of the Predecessor. What a name. With everything it's got. But thankfully, Taejun is immune to this ability. A lucky break. This monster is spamming an S-rank curse. It's completely insane. This creature is a total monstrosity. Just then, a mysterious person offers to help. A glimmer of hope that he was the retired founder of the guild. The elder was there due to the important occasion. Important for the future of the guild. He praises their display. And he mentions that he's noticed the silver skeleton. Isn't normal, because it looks more like a pile of trash. The situation is very serious right now. They'll leave the rest of the conversation for later. The guild founder then prepares an attack. The abomination is hit head-on. It starts screaming frantically. As expected, a demon summoned at the cost of a life is truly terrifying. So the founder decides to test something else. He unleashes another attack, wondering if the demon can withstand it. This was the legendary blood magic. The guild founder, this was the very man who ruled the world for a solid 20 years, a reign that began after the Great Catastrophe. He's renowned for his mastery of the arcane art, blood magic. In his prime, he was incredibly respected, though he's retired now. But back in his heyday, he led the Worm Guild to a stunning third-place ranking. However, the current situation feels unstable, to say the least. The founder is clearly under immense pressure. Tidon rushes forward, desperately trying to help the Bone Lord. He notes that blood magic, it literally uses the user's own blood. Ouch! But the abomination infects on contact. Close quarters combat is definitely out of the question. So, Titan unleashes his signature fireball. A deafening roar echoes through the area, but unfortunately, the attack seems to have had little to no effect. Miri warns him to stay alert. The abomination had charged towards their group, and our protagonist had already run out of mana. But just in the nick of time, his skeleton defends the attack. His summoned skeleton had begun to fight the bride. Eratus was confident and volunteered to handle things. He'd been incapacitated. Until then, due to the excessive light from before. He had fainted because of the overwhelming light. But now Eratus was back in action. Eratus charged towards the bride, sawing, "May God be with me." Marie becomes worried by Eratus's drastic personality shift. Eratus declares that he will purge this abomination, and Eratus begins to attack frantically. With everything he has, the demon bride grabs his skull. The monster launches a point-blank attack! There was nothing he could do. Eratus is caught in the full brunt of the attack. Not even divine power was enough to withstand it. The protagonist is left wondering, what else can I possibly do? Eratus laments for his master. He says that his journey ends here. But even without him, Tidun must live on. Eratus rises once more, announcing that this will be his final move. At that moment, Prada tries to stop him, but Eratus charges towards his enemy without hesitation, even though he knows the consequences of using that particular item. Because if that item is used, Eratus will never be able to return. The demon bride is about to be struck by the sword. Tidun is desperate, because that item is a single use and worth 8 billion, but there's nothing that can be done. Pirate had already unleashed the swing of his sword. The attack was in motion. The strike hurtled towards its intended target, his opponent. The Devil's Wave was struck head-on by the Holy King Gambling. What a devastating blow. Gambling. Even the bone section is impressed by the skeleton's performance. It's truly something to behold. Not only could he wield divine attributes, but he could also skillfully wield a divine sword. Amazing. You could practically see the brilliance, the raw divine power emanating from that attack. The creature had been defeated, and Eratus received a boost to his divine attributes. This is a huge win. Tidon, on the other hand, is understandably nervous. He's worried about the loss of his item. But Eratus reassures him, explaining that everything he did was to protect him. What a loyal friend. Oh no, Pirate is now affected by the debuff, petrification, for a full day. Now he can't even to give that skeleton a good scolding, or more idiomatically, to teach that skeleton a lesson. That sword was incredibly valuable because of its power, incredibly destructive. It consumes an astronomical amount of divine energy. There was no other way. He had to acquire the other sword. Now, with everything in hand, Tedion acknowledges Rado's efforts. He congratulates him on his determination. Thanks to the skeleton, the protagonist managed to stay alive. Just then, the Bone Lord appears. He's commenting on the buff trees, which ended up drastically affecting the skeleton. Poor guy, Tedion remarks. He suggests that if he were to release the invocation and let it go, it might resolve the issue. The Bone Lord understands what needs to be done. It was the first time the founder had ever seen a skeleton use divine attributes. That vision? It was like a memory of heroes from the past resurfacing. The old man starts to reminisce about days gone by. He offers his thanks to Taejun, because, thanks to him, the guild was able to escape the clutches of Hunter Joe. He had been plotting a coup, aiming to steal his nephew's position. The old man realizes that our protagonist's goals might align with his own. He asks if there's anything that Taehyun could possibly want from the Ruarian Guild. Or protagonist's reason for joining this guild was simple. It was quite plainly for his own benefit. With all that said, Taejun has no plans to simply take what belongs to others. He clarifies that the guild still holds value for him. The founder then announces to everyone present that Taejun has proven himself worthy. So the Lord of Bones announces that Taejun will be the new vice leader of the guild. With that, he asks our protagonist to say a few words. This was supposed to be his inaugural speech, more or less, so he greets everyone present. The sweet guy says he only has one thing to say to everyone. We must not steal from our brothers. And that was really all he had to say. The scene cuts to the MEF Guild building. On the news, there's a report that Taejung has become the vice leader of the Ruayong Guild. Ruayong. And this takes a lot of people by surprise. The leader says she respects the protagonist's decision, even though she feels betrayed because he helped his brother. She scolds him for being too nice and passive. She also laments not being able to recruit him. Taedion, but it didn't make sense to her that he joined the Ruayong Guild. Why would he do that? So she decides to figure out his motivations, to understand why he made this choice, by asking his close friend, the Huntress. The leader asks if she, this miss, can somehow persuade him to switch guilds. Can she convince him to change his mind? With everything, she admits she doesn't know if that's even possible. She's saying she just doesn't know what goes on in the protagonist's head. He's an enigma. The leader expresses her confusion. She can't understand how this could be, especially since the two of them are so incredibly close, so close to each other. The friend replies that even though they've been friends for over 10 years, he's completely unpredictable. It's a truth she's learned over time. But there's one thing that's a fact about Tai. One thing is certain. He's always striving to become stronger. It's his driving force. Now, as the new vice leader, his subordinates want to show him his new workspace. T enters his new work office, and his subordinates bid him farewell. From that moment on, Taedon is impressed by the good treatment that he's receiving. Up until then, Miri sees the opportunity to ask how he feels about being the vice leader. And stopping to think, our protagonist wonders if this is really what he wanted. They say successful people are often lonely, and he feels exactly like that. He's always been searching for what was right in front of him the whole time, being rewarded for his efforts. Over the last 7 years, thanks to explosive growth, he was able to become strong. But for some reason, becoming so strong in such a short amount of time is starting to make him feel uneasy. Taichu then wonders if the creator of the explosive growth quest
has left the company.
Miri confirms that he has. He then asks her about the possibility of failing a quest. Are there any penalties for failure? She admits that she's not entirely sure. So, she rushes off to check the server right away. Our protagonist is now deep in thought. He's seeing things about the system administrator that he doesn't quite understand. For a long time, he was the only one who could use the status window. It didn't exist for anyone else back on Earth. It all seemed too good to be true. And right then, Mary bursts in, looking incredibly flustered about something. Taejun asks her what all the commotion is about. Mary replies that she was looking at some information about explosive growth. She then says she's going to read these details to him. Explosive growth. User guide. Rule number 1 regarding the use of quests. While using explosive growth, users must accept certain designated quests. If a user fails to complete one of these quests and all effects of explosive growth, will disappear. This is a balancing measure aimed to limit a user's excessive growth. So if Taejun fails to complete one of these quests, all the attributes he's gained so far will vanish. Taejun's taken aback, wanting to confirm if he heard right. There's a chance I could lose everything? Mary confirms, unfortunately, yes. Taejun gets extremely furious, and Mary tries to defend herself. She claims this information was hidden. Our protagonist is understandably confused by all this, but Mary assures him that this kind of information is top secret. All she knows is that explosive growth is a special priority ability, meaning there was no way she should have known about this information. But something still feels off to Taejun. It's like a game operator is testing a server for a potential balancing update. So Taejun cuts straight to the chase. He asks if Miri might be monitoring him to analyze just how absurd this ability can be. Miri gets flustered. She says she can't talk about it right now, but Taejun is already fed up with Miri's denials. However, she says there's one thing she can say for sure. She's always on his side. Our hero isn't so sure about that, but Mary reassures him that the two of them are friends, that they're always on the same side. Taejun thinks to himself that Mary couldn't possibly be a bad person. She's always been so genuine and concerned for his well-being, especially when our protagonist was in danger. So he decides to give her the benefit of the doubt. Mary, always one step ahead, had already prepared an upgrade to show the remaining time for each quest. Their group had a mere 2 days, 3 hours and 35 minutes, to complete the quest. The clock is ticking. Mary, in her quirky way, had edited the layout. It looked a little odd. They couldn't afford to waste any more time. So Mary told him to check his post on the Parsley Marketplace. Taehyung had almost forgotten about it. He quickly goes to check, hoping for some good news, but there was only one comment on the post. 1. This sends a wave of despair crashing over Taehyung. Is everything falling apart? The commenter turned out to be someone apparently well-known. It was none other than the merchant the protagonist had asked for help from earlier. The merchant remembered Taejun for upgrading what was essentially a piece of junk. It was, the merchant says, a truly unforgettable sight. This merchant character explains that if the circuits can be restored, it might be possible to use the item again. But to fix those circuits, it would require, at minimum, a 7th circle mage. Taejun thanks him for the information. Mirin then asks if our protagonist knows any 7th circle mages. He thinks about Miss Sill, but he reasons she's probably only a 5th circle mage. Mirin is confused. She thought Miss Sill was one of the greatest mages in the country. According to Plata, he says, there aren't any 7th circle mages in the country. This is a global ranking, a high tier. Miri is dismayed. It's shocking to be so unaware of someone, though Plata isn't exactly the most reliable person. Moments later, someone's knocking at the door. It's the guild leader looking for Taejun. He's brought a stack of documents for our protagonist to handle, but Taejun has left a note. It simply reads vacation day. This catches the guild leader completely off guard. On his very first day of work, he's already taken a vacation and gone all the way to that millennial training tower. The leader wonders if there's a 7-circle mage there. Taejun starts to explain that the tower is actually a huge portal, the one who adapted to the terrain and took on that form. They say the tower used to be a structure from long ago. The two of them then set off to find that old man. And suddenly, he appears right in front of our group. It's a true hero's landing. They are 1 in a million and utterly surprised. The old man tells our group, may protein bless, old night your growth. Then the two greet each other properly. The old Jim Rat then asks what brings the two of them here. Titan gets straight to the point. He asks if the man can fix the item they have. The protagonist says, to think this old man is capable of something like this. The man then states that it's a simple task, and that it will be a great favor to his savior. But first, he wants to ask our protagonist something. The old man asks Taejun a profound question. What does strength mean to him? Specifically, what's the driving force behind his pursuit of strength? Is it to overpower others' convictions? Is it simply to reach his own goals? Some hone their bodies to a razor's edge, while others tirelessly polish their skills through relentless training. But the old man wants to know Taejun's ultimate purpose. What is Taejun striving to become powerful for? Our hero admits he doesn't have an answer. He's never actually thought about it before. The old man then declares with chilling certainty that strength without purpose is poison. And then, in a flash, the old man throws a punch straight at our protagonist. The blow is incredibly powerful. Thankfully, it misses. If that punch had landed, well, let's just say Taejun would definitely be meeting his maker. Our hero's immediate thought? This old guy's completely lost it. Your movements are impressive, the master says, but your heart wanders like a wild beast. Ouch, that stings. Lost and unsure of where to go. The old man then declares he's going to teach our hero a lesson. Looks like things are about to get interesting. He tells him not to worry, though. He'll go easy on him. Or so he says. Tae-de isn't exactly thrilled with the old man's attitude. So Tae-de accepts the challenge. a glint of determination in his eyes. He retorts that the old man can't report him for elder abuse. Sassy. And with that, Tae-Um's launches a swift kick. The old man blocks the kick, praising Tae-Um's effort, but also his frustration. Tae-Um declares it's not over and unleashes a flurry of attacks. Each punch is imbued with blazing blue flames. Whoa! These attacks actually seem to have some effect. The seasoned old master is actually pushed back by the force. The destructive power of the attack is truly incredible, and Tae-Dil starts to wonder if he really managed to defeat the old man for good. Are you all right, sir? The old man gives him some compliments on his strength and creativity, but then he warns Tidal that he overlooked something crucial. That old man was actually a mage, and that mage was preparing a fireball spell of X rank. Tidal wonders if this is the same fireball spell he uses. The potency of this skill varies infinitely, depending on the user's mana, the strength of their mana, and the amount they channel. There are countless variations of the spell. In our protagonist's case, this skill has been honed to a high level, but it doesn't contain ultimate power. The strength and manifestation of mana are determined by the desires and dreams etched into the user's soul. Simply wanting power for the sake of it won't make your abilities grow. Our little guy gets scared, and he asks the old man if he could maybe take it a bit easier on him. But the old man ignores his plea and tells Silver to defend with everything he's got. The old man wants him to prove himself right here and now. So our hero starts to question why he even wants to be strong in the first place. After all, the protagonist remembers how, for a long time, he trained tirelessly without seeing any real results. The way people looked down on him was the fuel that drove his efforts. Even when no one recognized his hard work, even when no one noticed his very presence, he stubbornly kept pushing forward. All of this because our protagonist desperately wanted to prove that his efforts weren't in vain. He just hadn't been rewarded enough for all that he'd poured into it. As their support collided, the protagonist declares that he won't be truly satisfied until he convinces the old man. At that moment, he becomes intrigued by the flame the man is producing. Even if it's weak, he can feel the man's burning, genuine desire. The old man comes to the conclusion that he finally figured it out. He's found the answer. And with a skillful move, he disarms the attack. He praises Tae-Dun, genuinely impressed. The old man acknowledges. Finally, Tae-Dun has found the path he's meant to follow. But the old man cautions him, a worried look in his eyes. There's a chance you might not be able to handle that kind of power. And if you continue training like this, before he can even finish his warning. Tae-Dun collapses, completely exhausted. He's out cold. It was almost expected, really. He pushed himself too hard. The old man studies the gauntlet closely, a thoughtful expression on his face. He mutters, "These circuits, which are incredibly complex. This could take anywhere from 8 to 12 hours to finish the job. It's a huge undertaking." The old man offers a justification, almost to himself, explaining that to restore a circuit like this demands an incredible amount of concentration. Besides, he won't be able to do anything while he's working on the gauntlet. So the elder asks Tae-Dun to safeguard his body. In the meantime, our protagonist readily accepts the task. With everything decided, Tae-Dun urges the elder to begin his work, and so it is done. The old man positions himself to begin the restoration. The sheer amount of focus and energy directed towards the gauntlet is impressive. The elder then begins to recite the incantation. Meanwhile, the protagonist wonders, what could possibly be in this place that would necessitate guarding the elder's body? Probably nothing. Tae-Dun decides to take a nap. Miri is worried, but Tae-Dun insists it's fine. Convinced, she decides to take a rest as well. Tae-Dun then drifts off to sleep, sleeping soundly, muttering in his sleep about receiving valuable gifts. Just then, a spider crawls onto his body. Tae-Dun suddenly wakes up, startled and disoriented. He's terrified by the sight of the spider, reacting instinctively. Startled by the sudden fright, he ends up attacking the spider. Tae-Dun tries to recover from the shock. Now he starts wondering where that monstrous spider came from. He wonders if it came from a dimensional rift, something he knows exists. These are creatures that wander in from other dimensions. Eventually, they show up to attack hunters. These monsters were probably drawn in by the mana from that great mage. So it's no wonder the old man asked him to safeguard his body. Poor guy. He then begins to eliminate the spider monsters, using his Dragon Fang Lash technique. Miri warns him to watch his back. Tae-Dun is immediately on alert and turns around. The spiders were just about to reach the old man, so our hero gets ready to strike. He unleashes multiple fireballs towards the spiders. The spiders were incinerated by the flames, and it seemed like it was over. Tae-Dun declares himself the man who always protects the things that are his. He then explains to Mui that the creatures are emerging from a dimensional rift drawn by the mana, but before he even has time to catch his breath, a rift suddenly tears open right behind our protagonist. This definitely catches him off guard. Monsters just keep pouring out of the rift, swarming the old man. Tae-Dun realizes he can't handle this many enemies all by himself. So he decides to call for backup from his loyal servant and rats. He barks an order to his skeleton minion to protect the muscular old man. The skeleton, ever loyal, replies that the mission given is as good as done. The battle against these void monsters drags on for 2 grueling hours. Our team is giving it their all, but even as they manage to exterminate wave after wave, even more monsters keep pouring out of the rift, and in ever-increasing numbers. Each wave is bigger and more ferocious than the last. 4 hours have already passed, and Taijun was already at his limit. He was exhausted. The pile of vanquished creatures was incredible, a testament to the battle. There was no time for rest, not even a second. The creatures just kept coming, wave after relentless wave. One of those monsters was about to land a hit on our hero, and it looked serious. Because of his level of exhaustion, Taijun wondered if it was even possible to dodge. Could he even move? But just then, a massive fireball slams into the creature. Our hero recognizes that attack from somewhere. He knew that spell. He wonders to himself, who's the lunatic? Raiding this dungeon solo? Who would be crazy enough to do that? It turns out it's a group of Taijun's friends. Hunters. Choi greets our hero by calling him an idiot, just like friends do. Thankfully, help has arrived, and Taijun was genuinely happy to see his buddies there, a wave of relief washing over him. Choi asks our hero, do you have any idea what's going on? Meanwhile, outside, a low-level dungeon has gone completely berserk. Monsters are spewing out of it like a broken faucet. Civilians are being evacuated left and right. The whole situation is an absolute madhouse. You could tell Choi was beyond frustrated. A national-level emergency had decided to crash their well-deserved break. He explained that every dungeon has a natural carrying capacity, a limit to how many monsters it can safely contain. And if, for whatever reason, that number gets pushed too far, the mana inside the dungeon goes completely haywire. This creates the dreaded ejection phenomenon, where creatures are violently forced out. This nasty business is known as a dungeon break. In fact, this very phenomenon was the root cause of the catastrophic events during that period of intense unrest. Just then, Ah spoke up, looking slightly bewildered. Who's that old man over there? She asked. Oh, you mean the old lab rat? Came the reply. Was still in the process of healing. Taijun, caught off guard, didn't quite know what to say. So he simply explains that the NPC is injured, and their objective is to protect him, while the monsters try to attack. For now, what they need to do is eliminate these monsters, thus restoring the dungeon's stability. Hunter. Choi points out that this has been their goal from the start. With that, Taijun expresses his gratitude for his friend's help, but Choi playfully tells him not to get in the way. While they're fighting, Hunter Choi unleashes the 5th form of the Light Blade art and performs the Tampa Slash, striking multiple monsters with a lightning-infused attack. He seizes the opportunity to boast, implying the monsters were too. Even weak monsters are giving Taijun a hard time. Hunter Choi continues to take down the monsters when an enemy suddenly appears in his blind spot. Someone helps him out and reminds them not to let their guard down. If they lose focus for even a second, tragedy could strike. So, once again, our Wonder Woman scolds the hunter. Choi for letting his guard down. Skull and rats agree with her as well. They say that what they need right now is to unite with everything they have. Our group was all ears, listening to the skeleton's pep talk. Meanwhile, the monsters continue to swarm the old man. Poor thing! Tadina quickly positions himself to defend him, saying that it's no surprise monsters are focusing on mana. It's to be expected. But even for our protagonist, that sheer number of monsters was something he'd never seen before. Suddenly, a massive tremor shakes the ground beneath them. A voice urges everyone to look in a specific direction. There, a gargantuan monster has just appeared. The creature's upper half resembles a void being, while the rest of its body is shaped like a spider. The appearance of this monstrous abomination doesn't come as a complete shock to Taijun. Something about the situation just felt off. Too many spiders had shown up. This was the Void Swarm Lord, a terrifying S-rank threat. Taidil. He begins to consider the origins of this formidable boss. He also realizes that this boss is the source, the very heart, of the spider swarm. Of all these spiders, definitely. It's no coincidence that this creature has revealed itself now. This whole thing could very well be a trap. Hunter Choi asks are they really just going to stand there and watch? Because if they don't do something soon, they're going to regret it. Taidong agrees. He's right. We can't just charge in blindly, but we definitely need to do something. In a situation like this, the best move would be to send in Iratus the skeleton. Of course. Someone asks, are you sending him to his death? Taidong replies matter-of-factly, obviously. Iratus is immortal, after all. And if by some crazy chance he does bite the dust, Tide will just revive him. Choi, losing his patience, yells, just get moving, skeleton. The group then tells Iratus to check if it's really a trap or not. Everyone there is rooting for our skeleton. Right then, Iratus starts gearing up for a full-on attack. He's emotionally shaken by being treated like a mere tool. It really hits him hard. Filled with fury, Eratus launches himself towards his enemy. As he charges, he whispers a prayer for his father in heaven, begging him to grant him strength in this moment of need. After the attack, Eratus feels a strange sense of unease. Nothing happened. It doesn't feel like a trap. But something's definitely off. Taide observes the situation, remarking that Eratus's dramatic entrance was all for naught. It looks like it was all show and no substance. Just then, a grotesque monster begins to absorb Eratus's weapon. At the same moment, the skeleton recoils in horror. The sight of the creature trying to devour the weapon is truly grotesque. But in that moment, Taide notices something else amiss. He urgently warns his companions that this creature most likely possesses the ability to absorb mana. They need to be careful. The key is that they have to fight without using any abilities. They also realize that the more they use their abilities, the more monsters appear. The monster has been feeding on the mana of our group this whole time. Hunter Choi is completely surprised, saying he's never seen anything like this before. The goal now is to fight without exposing any mana to the enemy. Hunter Choi boasts that he doesn't need mana to fight, that even without mana, he can handle those pests. Title then praises his friend's performance. Then he moves to help Erato fight the boss. Choi doesn't like this one bit, because the protagonist is about to, grabbing all the glory for himself, with everything. If he fails, he'll definitely be turned into minced meat. Taijun is incredibly confident in his plan, thanks to his observation that this creature prefers certain types of mana. Taijun appears behind the boss, taunting it. He's trying to get the monster's attention, using his fireball. At 90% power, his friends don't understand what he's trying to do. Then he fires. That fireball hurtles towards the monster. The attack is about to hit the spider boss, who's preparing to absorb all that energy. Like that grandfather had said before, mana reflects the user's desires. Attributes vary based on those desires. His goal? To completely mask that attribute. And he's doing it with the grid fireball. Taejun unleashes his full force attack on the monster. This is it. This isn't just any ordinary attack. Taejun's got that wicked grin on his face. He's watching with a mischievous gleam in his eyes. And that's all that's left of the boss. Poor thing. Taejun finds the creature's appearance truly disgusting. But despite how repulsive it looks, there's an interesting find to be made here. He's discovered a strand of void silk. Incredibly valuable stuff. It's produced by the monster spider. The only catch? To make it, the spider needs to be fed humans. That's what it takes to produce it. Right then, someone asks to enter the room, and Taejun was apparently quite excited about this visit. See? Our leader just had to handle a whole swarm of reporters. He asks what Taejun was doing up until now. He informs him about the dungeon break. That ended up happening in a beginner's dungeon. Kai Day praises him quite a bit for handling the situation so well. Then our protagonist encourages him to keep up the good work. But the guildmaster says it could end up becoming a problem if he keeps doing this. Regarding the protagonist's goals, Taida states that it's not what you do that matters, but how you do it. The guildmaster had quite the tantrum, an unprecedented meltdown, and Tadium physically stopped a catastrophe. This incident will be remembered for the next decade. With this in mind, our hero wants to improve the image of the Ruyan Guild, thus bringing great benefits to the guild. The guildmaster, however, doesn't seem convinced, so changing the subject, he asks why the protagonist brought him to that training room. Tadium dismissed opening a workshop right there, so the protagonist shows him the spider that produces void silk. That was the monster that caused the dungeon break. If it's fed mana, it has the ability to produce this incredibly valuable resource. Our hero is stunned. He's shocked to learn that a single gram is worth 1,000,000. So, Tade asks the leader to take charge of this enterprise for him. And so, the training area was transformed into a veritable spider's nest. The spider was constantly fed mana crystals. The guild master wasn't exactly thrilled about this new job description. The spider was already enormous at this point, turning the whole situation into a major headache. He was astonished by how much the creature had grown, and he's worried about the future of the building. If the spider gets any bigger, just then he receives a call from someone. They're asking how the workshop is doing. The leader replies that everything's going well. The spider is producing 1 kilogram of void silk. On the other end of the line, Titan is questioned about something. The guild master wants to know if it's truly safe to keep the creature there. Titan tells him not to worry. The creature doesn't bite. He thinks the guild master is being a lunatic at this point. Taidun mentions he has a business trip, but the leader wants to know what kind of business. Taidun answers that he wants to visit Daiwado, the home of the former guildmaster. Hearing this, the current leader is stunned, because that area is classified as a Class 1 danger zone, and entry is only permitted by the Union headquarters. He could get the credentials from his uncle. However, it's not possible to get in touch with him right now. Taijun assures him he understands the situation, but that he has connections and will figure something out. The guildmaster then asks what kind of business Taijun would have with his uncle. What brings you to him? It's just a formal visit, Taejun replies. I'm there to receive a special gift that he promised me, but there's more to it than that. Also, there's another reason, he thinks. Our hero needs to learn the skill blood magic. It's crucial. It all boils down to his new quest. He only has 4 days to master it. Talk about pressure. The scene cuts to the Cheondeon Guild. Someone has arrived at Miss Seal's office, and that someone is Taedyeon. He's entering now. The two greet each other politely, and Miss Seal mentions she received news that he stopped. A dun-dun. This sounds like a sound effect or a unique item or event name, so keeping it as is. She's impressed that Taedyeon, or Taiden, trying to be consistent, is always involved in these incidents. Miss Sil also says it's a shame the fact that he joined a guild that wasn't hers. She also mentions that the other guild leaders are frustrated too, but they understand. Some guild leaders even drowned their sorrows in drinks out of frustration. But C says she understands because the protagonist, Prota, assuming this means the main character, Taidun, is always interested in dark magic. So finally, she asks what Taidun wants from her. Taidun gets straight to the point. He says he needs an upgrade to enter the island of Da'elia, leaving as is, assuming it's the name. So he wants Ms. Sil to accompany him through it all. But then the crushing blow. She regretfully says she can't make it. A prior engagement, you see. Just like that, our protagonist's carefully laid plans crumble before his eyes. But then, a glimmer of hope arrives in the form of Miss Ciel. She confidently states that she can, in fact, secure the authorization he needs. Taedyeon, intrigued, asks the million-dollar question, how? Miss Clackle smiles knowingly. It's a little complicated, she admits. But trust me, she reassures him. I'll handle everything. The first step, she needs to register a guild member who can vouch for him. Someone to listen to him, as she puts it. In the meantime, Miss Seal has a small token she wants him to have. A gesture of appreciation, she explains. A thank you for his quick thinking and courage in uncovering the sabotage during that chaotic Rank B exam. This isn't just any trinket, though. She emphasizes that it's something truly valuable, something that will help safeguard his privacy, especially now with his rising fame. The token turns out to be a pass, a golden ticket to a maximum security apartment, a sanctuary impenetrable to prying eyes and unwanted guests. She beams at him. This, she clearly believes, is the perfect gift. And just then, oh, the poor thing, he's so touched by the gift, he's getting emotional. He even asks if he can call her Big Sis from now on. How sweet. And now we cut to the Bone Lord's lair. Things are getting serious. Something is happening. A sign that the time has come. A sinister presence. She claims it can no longer quench its thirst. This mysterious creature is craving the ketchup of that old man. Yikes! It wants to devour the old man's entire being. That's intense. Cut to another day. Somewhere else. Our group has just 3 days left. The clock is ticking, but considering the travel time to the island, our hero realistically has only about 2 days. Talk about a time crunch. The deadline is tight, and the reward unlocking the horizon of communication ability. Taejun asks Mary if she's all right. Something seems off. An ability to interfere with the window's resources? What could that mean? The status, like what happened the other day with the spell of spell and the Kiara scanner. All this added to the explosive growth. This isn't normal. Just one employee having the power to create all this in the company system. Mary reports that she already looked into it, but they just told her to keep an eye on it, in case anything goes wrong. And that was the only instruction she received, until now. Hearing this, our protagonist starts to grasp the situation. He wonders if all this isn't already a threat to the company. And he remembers when he completed his last quest, gaining the Moment Wiki feature, a feature that allows him to analyze a monster's characteristics. This explosive growth ability, it didn't just boost his stats, it also gave him a vast array of skills and functions. It's undeniably an absurdly powerful ability. So, our protagonist intends to abuse it as much as he can while he's got it. You can't blame him, right? Suddenly, an acquaintance greets Taejun. It's the hunter, you. She seems thrilled to see him. She pauses for a moment, rummaging in her bag. It's her phone. She doesn't want to miss this incredible opportunity to take a picture of him. Taejun is quite the celebrity these days, after all. But judging by his expression, he finds the whole thing pretty weird. It's clear he's not enjoying this one bit. However, the beautiful girl doesn't seem to care. She's snapping photos without permission, as if they were a couple on vacation. Just then, another character suddenly appears. He seems to materialize out of thin air. It's the Hunter King, with his usual over-the-top antics. Even our female lead is taken aback. She's wondering what that lunatic is doing here. Taiden, on the other hand, doesn't even seem to recognize the guy. Kang launches into a story about the time he was heroically saved by our protagonist. Now he proclaims, He respects Taidoon above all else. Amid this bizarre scene, someone shouts for our group. It's the captain of the ship. He's saying it's time to set sail. Our group boards the ship, and they finally depart. The captain grumbles that if it weren't for the guild's request, they'd never set foot on that cursed island. Our hero throws the question back at the captain, asking him why. Aren't you aware of the monsters lurking around that island? He asks, his eyebrows raised in concern. Titan responds with a simple yes. He reminds the captain that there are a lot of mermaids in those waters. The captain nods in agreement, adding that it's their breeding season, which means the monsters are incredibly aggressive because they're protecting their eggs. Any rocking of the boat in the water, and those monsters will definitely jump aboard. We could get to the island quickly. The captain explains, if I didn't have to make a detour. And with all this going on, Tayden clearly isn't a fan of the detour idea. He firmly states that it's not necessary. He insists they head straight for the island. No detours. The captain is far from thrilled to hear this. Have you lost your mind? He asks, his voice laced with disbelief. Tayden tries to reassure him. He confidently says that the monsters won't even be able to scratch the ship. Once again, our protagonist, Tayden, presses the captain. Take us straight to the island, he demands. No detours. Full steam ahead. But the captain's face hardens. Absolutely not, he replies firmly. I have a family waiting for me back home. I'm not risking everything. Taejun, however, is not easily deterred. I'll pay you double what Miss Sill paid, he counters, a glint in his eye. If you agree to this, the captain's irritation flares. You can't put a price on a life, he snaps, his voice laced with scorn. But Taejun is relentless, his eyes fixed on the goal. Triple the amount, he declares, the offer hanging heavy in the air. And then, the captain's composure cracks, his jaw drops. Suddenly, the ship lurches, the course changes, and they're heading straight for the island. Taejun had found the captain's price. Plain and simple. Meanwhile, his companion can't shake a growing sense of dread about this reckless expedition. She reminds Taejun, her voice tight with worry. We both know what lurks beneath those waves, how dangerous those creatures are. Taedaeum even mentioned that she's not wrong to think that way, with everything. He has everything planned out in advance, using one of his abilities. Taedaeum knew exactly how many monsters there were, and where they would come from. The group then coordinated around following Taedaeum's instructions. The monsters came in the exact number, and from the same directions that the protagonist predicted. Miss Yu is baffled as to how Taejun did that, but she's going to trust him for now. Taejun continues to give instructions, with telling them to wait until the monsters are as close as possible. Another wave of monsters leaps onto the ship. Taejun then unleashes his newly acquired skill. It was Power Strike, an ability that ignores 50% of the monster's physical defense. He combines this with the Rising Dragon Fist concept, touching the monsters, saying it's a waste to send them back to the ocean. But you can collect medicinal stones from those creatures. Hunter Kang, who was watching, sees now that the rumors about him being able to use the Rising Dragon Fist were true. Taejun grows concerned about this guy, who's been watching him the whole time. Hunter Kang was incredibly impressed with Taehyung's performance using that skill, so he declares that the protagonist is now his rival. Taehyung, on the other hand, thinks this guy is a total nutcase. He's a lunatic. Hunter Kang is determined to show Taejun his skills. Some time has passed, and we're now on Daua Island, the Lord of Bones receives word that Taejun is on his way. He's furious that he's getting this information so late. The guildmaster tries to justify himself. He explains that it was due to the bad signal, but the old man retorts that he could have used the crystal ball. Now, the Lord of Bones is worried about Taejun's group because of a monster. Taejun's vessel was already visible in the distance. It was packed with aquatic monsters. As it approached, Taejun promptly greets the Lord of Bones. The Lord, he's clearly impressed by Taejun's extravagant introduction. It was quite the entrance. He asks, eyes wide, if Taejun himself hunted all those mermaids. During their breeding season, no less. The captain replies with a knowing smirk. Isn't it obvious? Of course, it was us. His crew, he explains, are hunters unlike any other. They're a cut above the rest. They knew exactly how to handle those slippery sirens. Taejun brags that they hunted every single mermaid that crossed their path. But he admits, we didn't get them all. Many of them are probably still hiding in the depths of the ocean. He concedes. The old man nods wisely. That's only natural, he says. It's the way of things. With all, mermaids aren't capable of diving to the deepest parts of the ocean, except for one particular mermaid. At that moment, Parsley. Navigation. The navigation system had detected a hostile creature behind our protagonist. It had emerged suddenly, catching everyone off guard and putting them on high alert. The monster charged towards our group. Everyone there was on full alert. Warning! The alert blares. The monster is 100 meters to the northwest. Northwest. Our agile fighter, Yu, rushes forward. attempting to immobilize the creature. She unleashes her full power, casting Ice Chamber with everything she's got. But it seems the ability hasn't completely restrained the monster's movements. It's still fighting. And you, our valiant hunter, is already pushing her limits.
The monster finally breaks free.
The force of its escape sends shards of ice
Flying everywhere.
Our dear Yu is left in shock, staring in disbelief. She wonders how could a mere siren, a B-rank siren no less, have the ability to negate her skill? It's unheard of. So Miss Yu warns Taidun that this creature is anything but ordinary. The monster finally reaches the shore. The ship's captain is gripped by panic at the sight of it, because the monster before them is no ordinary siren. It's the Siren Queen. After all, Titan is understandably stunned by such a creature. Living around the coast, our protagonist realizes he'd have to be extra careful this time. Why? Because the monster's scales reflected magical attacks right back at the caster. Ouch. Plus, there was no way to actually mobilize or even move this thing. Tidun decides that a strategic retreat is in order for now. He needs to come up with a better plan. With all of this going on, the Lord of Bones stood firmly in his position. He couldn't help but wonder if this was the end of the line. Why is the end of his lifespan? The Lord signals to the other hunters, ordering them to step back. He declares that he will personally take on the Queen Mermaid. With that, the Lord of Bones unleashes his special ability. It completely immobilizes the monstrous creature, holding it in place. The Lord is absolutely furious with the monster. How dare it bare its teeth at his master? The disrespect! This attack from the Lord of Bones proves incredibly effective. The monster clearly feels the impact. It recoils as it's struck. The Bone Lord completely obliterated the creature, tearing it to shreds. Those pieces all tumbled down into the ocean depths. Miss Yu was thoroughly impressed, witnessing a ranked creature get utterly defeated. This monster, a ranked beast, had been taken down with a single skill. Our hero starts to consider learning that old man's skill himself. Putting the quest aside for the moment, the Bone Lord assures them that the island will have peace for some time now. Then he remembers he has a gift to give to the vice leader, Teed. The rest of the group is also pleased with their welcome. So, the old man says he'll guide them to his residence. Now at the Bone Lord's residence, our beautiful Miss Yu is amazed by the Bone Lord's home. Now she understands why Miss Sildybaji asked them to keep the trip a secret. She never would have imagined that a legendary hunter would be living on a remote island in South Korea. She actually got to witness the Lord of Bones defeat the creature just by using blood magic. And not even the leader of her own guild could pull something like that off. Meanwhile, Hunter Kang thinks that his guild master could totally do that. And that's how a childish squabble broke out over who had the stronger guild master. Seriously? The rest of the group, meanwhile, was trying to figure out which rooms might be theirs. Poor Thing asks his group to get some rest because it was a tough journey. And we cut to the Lord of Bones' office, where he was kicking back, relaxing his weary bones and sipping on some coffee. Poor Thing. He's asked what he thought of his room, and he replies that he was seriously impressed. The Lord of Bones is quite pleased to hear that. Then he gets straight to the point. He starts talking about the gift he has for our protagonist. The two of them then head off to another location. On the way, the Lord mentions he's heard about a recent dungeon break incident, and how Taidun was incredible in how he managed to resolve that incident. With everything, Taidun acts quite modest about it. He talks about the contributions of his guild leader. The old man gets instantly irritated upon hearing about his nephew, because that kid almost led the guild to ruin. The old man starts rattling off reasons: debts, bad business deals, and a whole host of poorly executed services. Apparently, all this happened under his nephew's management. But now, thanks to some incidents involving a dungeon break, his old guild has finally been recognized. For an act of heroism, no less. Ju, meanwhile, is starting to think her guild leader is even more of a disaster than she initially believed. And so, Selver wants to know why the old man trusted the guild to his nephew in the first place. The Lord should have known that he wasn't the right person for the job, so he decides to answer Taijun's question. He explains that he had become too weak. The nerf had finally hit him hard. Taijun is completely lost, and the old man tells them to follow him to another room. Taidian doesn't completely dismiss what the old man is saying, because aging really does affect a hunter's strength. It's a fact. With everything, poor Taidian tries to scan the Lord of Bones, but it wasn't possible, because the targets has exceeded the users. This left Taidian completely bewildered, because there are only a handful of people who are impossible to scan. Those are the strongest hunters active today. The absolute elite. This meant that this old man, despite his age, was as powerful as the top hunters in the world right now. That's insane. So Tidin asks him if he has some kind of secret. The two of them finally arrive at the designated location. It was, without a doubt, an incredible room. Tidin couldn't have imagined a place like this existed. That this room was actually located underground. But the old man, ever so modest, says the room is nothing compared to the spaces used by the top guilds today. The old man then invites Tidin to choose one of the items, and our protagonist selects the Magnus School, a tier item that boosts all his stats by a certain amount. Tidin had no doubt this was an incredible item, but it wasn't just this item that was impressive. Any other hunter would be thrilled to have the opportunity our hero is currently enjoying. All of these items were designed for close quarters combat, so Tidin asks if the old man has anything related to skills. Blood magic. The old man is visibly surprised to hear that. He asks if our hero is genuinely interested in blood magic. Our hero confirms, yes, I am, because blood magic possesses incredible abilities. However, the Bone Lord says there's nothing related to blood magic in this place. The old man then changes the subject, saying he'll prepare some food. He suggests our hero choose something else, something that's available. If he happens to find something else that catches his eye, he's welcome to take it. Our hero finds the situation just now a bit strange. All he wants is to learn blood magic. Nothing else matters. Blood magic is what will fulfill his grand ambition. Mary asks if there isn't another way to learn blood magic at all. Poor guy. He explains that blood magic isn't a skill you can just learn. You can't simply ask someone to teach it to you. It's a skill based on a passive ability called blood mana. If you haven't awakened this passive skill, then you can't use blood magic at all. Tidin hopes there's a book somewhere in this place that can help him awaken his blood mana. Then, a flash function activates. It's designed to detect hidden devices. And suddenly, one specific location lights up like a beacon. Tidin didn't even know Miri had added this feature after the dungeon incident. They find a very suspicious-looking red button. Miri says this button could potentially launch a nuclear missile, but Tidin waves it off, saying it's probably nothing too dramatic, and he decides to go ahead and poke it. Suddenly, a bookshelf slides open, and with the secret passage discovered, everything seemed to be falling into place. But Miri had already prepared for the worst-case scenario imaginable. Inside the dungeon, a book was prominently displayed. It was the clear focal point in the middle of the room. Codex of Blood? A unique artifact. A forbidden book that requires a ritual with a price paid in ketchup? The translation here is likely playing on words with blood, so we'll keep it intriguing. It grants blood mana. During the acquisition process, Tidin is amazed that the old man was keeping something like that here. Later in the dining room, the group was chatting. They were discussing the initiation gift that Tidin had chosen. Bander's Onyx, Tier C, but resisting mental contamination. That's something our protagonist definitely needs. The old man acknowledges that if that's what Tidin wants, then so be it. He's already finished his meal, so he tells everyone to get some rest. Considering the time, it's already very late at night. Then, a mysterious being appears, bringing up nostalgic memories for the Bone Lord. This being pleads with the old man to let Taejun learn blood magic. They claim the old man was just like Taejun, willing to sacrifice anything for power. Hearing this, the old man becomes visibly angry. He retorts that the contract can only be made through the code, with everything included. Then that being warns the Bone Lord that there's something he doesn't know. The old man freezes, a chill running down his spine as he hears those words. Just then, the entity reveals that Tidin has already obtained the ketchup code. This news sends the Bone Lord into a state of shock. Witnessing this, he's utterly bewildered by the situation. The entity explains that it can sense a new host ready for it to emerge. And it's ecstatic, because it won't have to settle for an old body any longer. The scene cuts to Miss Yu's bedroom, where we see that cutie sound asleep. The mysterious entity is complaining to the old man about being fed trash until now. Even though an incredible banquet is right at its fingertips, the entity apologizes to the old man, but it can't hold back any longer. It's going crazy with hunger. So the entity asks the old man to also. He relishes the deliciousness of that girl's soul. But just then, someone calls out to the Lord of Bones, Tidin, asking what he's doing in that room so late at night. The old man fires back a question, asking what the young one is doing there. Tidin responds that he's feeling guilty and wanted to apologize for earlier. The old man explains he wasn't entirely honest either, because what he really wanted was something else entirely, and that something was the secrets of blood magic. Again, Tidin apologizes, saying he has his reasons for wanting to learn blood magic. Reasons so powerful that he'd be willing to sacrifice everything for them. With a sinister expression, the old man asks if he's truly ready for that, because blood magic is beyond his imagination. But this power comes at a hefty price. Tate affirms that he's more than ready to pay it. That's exactly what the old man wanted to hear. So, without further ado, he orders them to begin. Tadion is immediately confused. And then, the mysterious being reveals itself to him. Taedion demands the being identify itself. The being introduces itself as a great mage from ancient times, a ketchup mage, one who has been revived multiple times. He claims he is the one who will grant the protagonist great power, provided that he lets him reside within his body and nourish it so that he can maintain all of his magnificent power. Just then, a warning appears. It alerts him that an unauthorized user is trying to access Tade's status window. The ketchup code was enveloping Tade, who falls into despair, saying that this wasn't part of the deal at all. But the old man retorts that it's too late to back out now. The great ancestral mage was trying to inhabit Tajun's body, and the status window was synchronizing the new user. Our hero starts to panic, protesting that he still has so much he wants to achieve. The entity then thanks our hero for ceasing his resistance and is seriously impressed by just how much better this new body is, comparatively speaking, compared to the old body the mage possessed. However, Taejun suddenly starts acting really strangely. Out of nowhere, the entity inside his body can't understand what's going on. Something about this just doesn't seem right with Taejun and that ancient magic. He finally realizes he wasn't able to control that body